This internet iceberg outlines stories, legends, myths, creepypastas, characters, and ideas from all around the internet, ranging from very well-known and very well-understood topics at the top to incredibly obscure and sometimes mysterious topics at the bottom. Today, we're going to try and identify and define everything on this iceberg. But before we get into it, I just need to get two things out of the way first. First of all, this iceberg's pretty big, and so for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and skip the first two layers of this iceberg. Pretty much everything on the first two layers of this iceberg is incredibly obvious and stupid, or the topics have already been covered to death by other YouTubers, and odds are you're probably coming here to hear about new stuff. I don't really want to waste time in this video talking about stuff that's already been talked about a million times on YouTube before. The other thing I want to say before we get into this is that since there's so much stuff on this iceberg, I'm not going to go super in-depth into everything. Some of the entries on this iceberg are just really not super interesting, or they're super similar to other entries on the iceberg, so when these less interesting entries come up, I just won't spend as much time on them. Also, I'm going to get some Minecraft gameplay going to kind of help lighten the moods. Things are going to get pretty weird. Alright, with that being said though, grab yourself a caffeinated drink, crank up that VPN, because this is the internet iceberg. Chip Chan is the name given to a pretty mysterious Korean woman who would live stream herself for extended periods of time doing effectively nothing. Initially, she would live stream on this one South Korean platform, but she also did eventually move to live streaming on YouTube as well. Very little information is known about this Chip Chan person, aside from the little bits of information she's let on to her viewers over the years. She seemingly believes that a corrupt member of the Korean police agency implanted a chip into her ankle that allows them to monitor everything she does, and to some extent even kind of mind control her. She's kind of insinuated over the years that she's live streaming to kind of prove that she's being mind controlled or monitored, or that she's live streaming to protect herself in some way. There are many theories out there that try and explain this whole situation. Theories ranging from the idea that this is some sort of weird art project, or that this is some sort of cover-up for something else. Although the most likely theory is that Chip Chan has some sort of mental illness, such as schizophrenia, that leads her to believe that she has some sort of mind-controlling chip implanted in her that requires her to live stream all day. A recent development in this Chip Chan story, though, that I think should be noted is that as of the making of this video right now, Chip Chan hasn't streamed on her YouTube channel for over 10 months, and she seemingly hasn't streamed on any other services for a long time either. So this has led a lot of people to believe that Chip Chan is receiving the help that she needs. Vaporwave. Vaporwave is both a genre of music and a visual aesthetic. On the music side of things, Vaporwave is usually characterized by its use of 90s and 80s smooth jazz and Muzak samples. These samples will often be manipulated and pitched down, or slowed down, or layered on top of other samples to get that certain kind of sound that people consider Vaporwave. When talking about the visual aspects of Vaporwave, some things that are often associated with the aesthetic are old 3D graphics, marble statues, old computer operating systems like Windows 95 and Macintosh Plus. Some brands like PlayStation and Pepsi and Microsoft and Fiji Water are usually associated with Vaporwave. The aesthetic also often incorporates elements from cartoons and animes from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Greasy, gloopy internet nerds will debate you all day over what the Vaporwave aesthetic truly is, but this is the general idea. Trance 009. Trance 009 is a song that was really popular for people to use as background music for their YouTube videos. Nowadays, the song is often associated with low-quality tutorials or top 10 videos from the early days of YouTube. It's one of those songs that you've totally heard a million times, but you just don't know the name of it. This is what it sounds like. God, that song haunts my dreams. Cicada 3301. Cicada 3301 is a name given to an organization that has hosted these giant convoluted internet puzzle things. The puzzles they have hosted have required people to decipher encrypted messages and call random phone numbers, and at one point in one of the puzzles, you even had to go to certain coordinates to find posters with QR codes that would lead you to the next clue. They've seemingly hosted 3 puzzles so far, and till this day, it doesn't seem like the third one has been solved. No one is entirely sure what the Cicada 3301 group is, but a lot of people speculate that it's a group of cryptographers trying to recruit other talented cryptographers. Username 666. So I already covered this one in my YouTube iceberg video, so I'm gonna make this quick. Username 666 is referring to a YouTube video called Username 666, where a guy goes to a YouTube channel called 666, and on the YouTube channel there's a bunch of distorted satanic imagery type stuff. Username 666 is also referring to, though, how in real life for a long time, if you tried to visit the YouTube channel called 666, YouTube would just give you a message saying that the account had been terminated due to severe violations of the community guidelines. So there's a little bit of a mystery surrounding why the YouTube channel 666 666 was terminated. 4chan knowledge charts. I'm not exactly sure what 4chan knowledge charts is referring to, but my best guess is either that it's referring to like tier lists or guides that people post on 4chan, or could also be referring to how among 4chan users there's kind of this sentiment that there's different levels of 4chan users. There's a lot of people that are kind of noobs when it comes to 4chan, but there's also people that have a deeper understanding of it or something like that. I'm probably missing something here, so yeah. Alan Tutorial. Alan Tutorial is a YouTube channel that starts out with a guy that makes really mundane and random tutorial videos. We're talking videos like how to fill a tiny bin with dirt and how to leak on a piece of paper. As the YouTube channel goes on though, more weird, spooky occurrences start happening in his tutorial videos. Things start getting really wacky when he just kind of inexplicably destroys his room and apparently gets locked out of it. While locked out of his room, he gets abducted by some unexplained party where he is taken to some jail cell and held captive. Even while being held captive, though, he continues to make tutorial videos. The last video on the channel is just called Tutorial, and in the video it looks like he escapes the cell he's being held captive in. It's a pretty interesting YouTube channel, though it's pretty well known that it is an artistic project by a man who goes by Alan Resnick. Alan Resnick has claimed that the whole series is kind of a satire making fun of terrible YouTube tutorials and such. DPR. My best guess is that DPR is referring to Dread Pirate Roberts. Dread Pirate Roberts is a pseudonym Ross William Ulbricht used. Ross William Ulbricht was the founder and former owner of Silk Road, a dark web, black market online marketplace that sold a multitude of illegal things, but most prominently being drugs. After being busted for the whole Silk Road thing, according to Wikipedia, Ross William Ulbricht was sentenced to a double life sentence plus 40 years without possibility of parole. So, that's pretty cool. 11B-X-1371. This is referring to a YouTube video that's been uploaded to YouTube under this cryptic string of letters and numbers. It's this video of this guy in a plague doctor mask standing around in some abandoned building while these cryptic messages flash on screen and this like distorted audio plays in the background. This video is kind of your average YouTube ARG mystery type thing. People decoded the messages on screen and it relays some message about how there's intentions to attack the government. If you take the audio from the video and run it through an audio visualizer or a spectrogram, there's a bunch of pictures of dead bodies. At first, people were thinking that these pictures of dead bodies were real, but then it was later discovered that most of these pictures are taken from old horror movies. This video was most prominent in like 2015 and 2016, and since then, nothing's really come of it. The most popular upload of this video is on a YouTube channel called Parker Wright, and this Parker Wright person has, of course, come out and said that this is part of some artistic project that he was doing. I really don't know what else you'd expect from something like this, honestly. Agamemnon Counterpart. Agamemnon Counterpart is a short film made by Michael Ronson and Jason Kovac. The short film is a trippy, crazy take on children's television. The video includes this just random faceless character just screaming while various distorted visual effects take place on screen. The short film was uploaded to YouTube in 2006 and it's garnered quite a bit of attention as a lot of people have made creepypastas about it and spread rumors relating to it. Yay Video Games. On September 8th, 2010, a Reddit thread was posted on r/gaming asking people what their favorite Elder Scrolls Oblivion mods were. A Reddit user by the name of Yay Video Games responded with this: the uninstall button. The game is great and all that, but god, it is hard to fully remove all the junk it leaves behind on your system. You really need to check out that mod when the time comes to get rid of it. Otherwise, I think Obscuro's Oblivion Overhaul is a nice start. The reply was, as you can see, a little bit of a word salad, a little bit hard to understand, so another Reddit user said what, basically asking him to elaborate. Yay Video Games responded with the uninstall button. The game is great. Ubisoft goes Steamworks bye-bye, always on DRM. But you opt go work, always on DR. Check out the junk it leaves behind you. Following this response, Yay Video Games then proceeded to spam the thread over 4,000 times with variations of the phrase Ubisoft goes Steamworks bye-bye, always on DRM. You know, not just Control-C, Control-V-ing the phrase over and over again. We're talking variations of this phrase that he deliberately wrote out. Following this incident, Yay Video Games' Reddit account was terminated, and many people were very confused about the situation. After many years of speculation and people digging through Yay Video Games' account and its history, a friend of Yay Video Games basically came out and explained that at the time, Yay Video Games was suffering from a pretty chronic condition that was eating away at his mental health, and at the same time, Yay Video Games had a pretty dedicated sense of humor, and the two kind of culminated and created the whole spam thing. Twitch Booster. This one's really kind of random and out of place. Twitch Booster is a website where you can buy fake Twitch engagement, so we're talking like fake viewers and fake followers. Apparently you can buy 100 followers for $3.95, so that's pretty good. WikiLeaks is an organization that publishes news leaks and classified information provided from anonymous sources. WikiLeaks has released quite a few pretty prominent classified documents, probably the most prominent being the publication of a U.S. Army manual for Guantanamo Bay and the publication of over 20,000 of Hillary Clinton's private emails. Dang it. Roro-chan 1999 is the name used by a young Japanese live streamer. She began live streaming on and off in around 2012 and used a Japanese streaming service called Nico Nico. In the earlier days, her live streams would usually just consist of her doing pretty normal stuff like playing the piano and talking to her audience. But over time, her live streams began involving more and more dangerous stunts, such as running through traffic and standing on the roof of her apartment building. Unfortunately, on November 24th, 2013, while Roro-chan was live streaming, she fell off her balcony and passed away. The true intentions of Roro-chan are still kind of unknown, whether she fell off on purpose or by accident. Some of the people in the chat while she was live streaming were encouraging her to jump off, while some of them were not. In 2019, a Japanese rock band by the name of Shinzei Kamada-chan released an animated music video dedicated to Roro-chan's death. This shed a lot more light on the situation and brought it to a lot more people's attention. Mariana's Web. Mariana's Web is the supposed web that is even deeper than the dark web or the deep web. All the myths and legends about this Mariana's Web thing aren't very specific about how you're supposed to get onto it, but I guess the idea is that you're going to need some sort of key or decryption device to get on. Of course, there's a bunch of legends and rumors about the kind of things you can find on Mariana's Web. I've seen stuff that's like there's lost plans from Nikola Tesla that would allow you to generate infinite electricity. I've seen stuff about how the Mariana's Web hosts some crazy, super powerful AI. I've seen stuff about how the Mariana's Web has coordinates to the lost city of Atlantis. You get the idea. Foxy. Foxy is the online pseudonym for a woman by the name of Katie Wayne. Katie Wayne would make these videos where she would play this character called Foxy, where she just made random vlog videos and ramble on about random stuff.
Most of you know me as Foxy.
At some point in either 2008 or 2009, though, Foxy's YouTube channel was hacked by a group on 4chan, and she wasn't able to regain control of it until around 2 years later. Since this incident, Foxy's presence on the internet has kind of slowly waned away. During the period where she didn't have access to her main YouTube channel, she created another YouTube channel called The New Hope, and she hasn't even posted on that channel for over 3 years now, so... Official First Contact. I'm not sure what Official First Contact is exactly specifically referring to. It's probably referring to something along the lines of, like, just how on the internet people love to post fake videos of spotting aliens and making contact with aliens and seeing UFOs and stuff like that, I guess. The Lost Media Wiki. The Lost Media Wiki is a Wikipedia that's dedicated to documenting and tracking down lost pieces of media. So we're talking like lost movies and videos and video games and stuff like that. Kekma. Kekma was a shock website with a lot of disturbing, not safe for work imagery on it. For a while, people were posting links to the website on random Discord servers and in the comments of some YouTube videos and trying to trick people to click on it. Upon going to the website, the page would just instantly full screen and there'd be loud screeching sounds and flashing imagery, only furthering the shock value of the website. Everywhere at the End of Time. Everywhere at the End of Time is a series of 6 albums that when you listen to them all together, they're supposed to kind of emulate or depict what it's like to have memory loss or Alzheimer's or dementia. Everywhere at the End of Time was created by an electronic musician by the name of Leland James Kirby, who went by the moniker The Caretaker for this project. Everywhere at the End of Time is built from samples of old ballroom jazz music, and it has 6 stages, with each stage representing the decrease in function and sanity of a dementia patient. So the earlier stages of the album have like pretty coherent music. Like there's a little bit of distortion here and there, a little bit of looping, but there's still like a lot you can grasp onto and be like, yeah, this is music. But towards the later stages of the album, things just start getting super distorted and there's tons of looping and these dark, droning, ambient sounds start taking over. And people who have listened to the entire 6-hour album say that it can kind of make you feel like you have dementia. Hey, Lamau. Hey, Lamau is probably referring to a meme where this phrase, hey, Lamau, will be put next to pictures of aliens. It's just a random, stupid meme thing. The edge of the internet. The edge of the internet could be referring to a lot of things. My best guess, though, is that this is referring to how on YouTube there are certain videos that will just get randomly recommended to people for no reason. One of these videos is this video, which is literally just a 15-minute loop of a song from Donkey Kong Country. The video has 5 million views, pretty much all from people randomly getting recommended it. And a lot of the comments on this video make jokes about how, like, if you found this video, you just reached an internet checkpoint, or you just reached the edge of the internet. Sci-Hub. Full disclaimer, I'm in no way promoting piracy. I'm just out here talking about this situation. Sci-Hub is a website that basically steals and pirates scientific and academic research papers and then redistributes them for free. The website pushes this idea that scientific and educational resources shouldn't be able to be copyrighted and that groups shouldn't be able to hold these resources behind a paywall. And to combat this, Sci-Hub redistributes pirated resources for free. 8chan, which is basically just more extreme 4chan, was taken down after its involvement with the 2019 El Paso shooting. The website was later then rebranded as 8kun and relaunched Eratos. When it comes to Eratos, there's a lot of different stuff going in a lot of different directions, so I'm going to try and make this as concise as possible. Basically, the idea is that Eratos is this supposed computer algorithm or computer program that is utilized by some corporations to monitor or procure their websites. The idea is this program can be used to remove copyright infringing content from websites, or it can be used as some sort of mass surveillance thing. Another thing Eratos supposedly does is it deletes any mention of itself that it finds on whatever website it's trying to procure or monitor. This concept of this Eratos computer program came to fruition through a really complex web of different 4chan posts and YouTube videos and Bandcamp pages. Some people on 4chan were recalling how, while working computer IT jobs, they remember hearing rumors about this supposed Eratos computer program. A YouTube channel by the name of Chronos for Life for a while was making videos where he would seemingly purposely try to bait the Eratos computer program into flagging his videos. All these things kind of came together to create this idea of this Eratos computer algorithm or computer program. It's a pretty convoluted situation, but there's been a little bit of a development within the Eratos story. There's this band called the KFC Murder Chicks, and people were starting to find some connections between this band and Eratos. And then came this YouTube channel called Toxicologist. He's got around 5,000 subscribers as of right now. He seems pretty reliable. In one of his videos, he gets into contact with someone who is apparently the leader of the KFC Murder Chicks, and he asks him a couple questions relating to the Eratos situation. And the leader of the KFC Murder Chicks guy says that Eratos and everything surrounding it is kind of an ARG that he came up with. And sure, there's a possibility that this video is fake, or the person he's talking to isn't actually the leader of the KFC Murder Chicks, but I don't really know what these people would gain from lying about this kind of thing, except for maybe some attention. It seems pretty legit to me, but who knows, maybe this is just part of the game Eratos is trying to play. Stuxnet. Stuxnet is a computer virus that was likely created by the US and Israeli government. The computer virus was targeted at Iranian nuclear facilities. Specifically, this virus targeted some centrifuges at an Iranian nuclear enrichment lab and caused these centrifuges to spin out of control and tear themselves apart. This computer worm is often credited as being really potent and played a large role in hindering Iran's nuclear program. John Cena, Jonathan Stamos, Johnny Test, Johnny Bravo, Johnny Upgrade, 973 Ednamu, 973. If you rearrange the letters, it's 973 The Human. 973 The Human 973 is a website that is pretty mysterious. It is an incredibly sprawling website with thousands of different pages and links to explore. The website is primarily made up of really cryptic text and religious imagery. The website also seems to have a pretty big emphasis on math and numerics, with there being a lot of mathematical puzzles. What's really interesting about this website is it also has a forum section where users of this website will congregate and talk to one another. Some people, of course, think that this website is just an art project, but there are other ideas as to what this website is. People on the forum have explained that this website is a reflection of their beliefs being that God is somehow related to math and numerics. The website overall, though, is still very mysterious, and it does not seem like there is a definitive answer out there that explains the whole website. I love you. This entry is referring to a computer worm that infected an estimated 10 million Windows computers and caused over $20 billion in damages in the early 2000s. This computer worm spread as an email that had the subject line, I love you, and the email would ask you to download a file off of it that was supposedly a love letter. When the file was downloaded, it looked just like a text file, but upon opening the file, it would run a script on your computer that would do various malicious things. It would overwrite all sorts of files on your computer, like audio files and text files. It would steal passwords, and it would go into the user's email client and basically duplicate and send the I love you email to everyone in the contact list, leading this computer worm to spread pretty exponentially. The computer worm was developed by two Filipino programmers, Renel Ramones and Onel de Guzman, and at one point they were arrested by the Filipino government, but at the time in the Philippines there were no laws that explicitly said that making malware was illegal, so the programmers pretty much just got off scot-free. New Material Want. New Material Want is a website that uses a bot to grab random free-to-use 3D models from databases online and overlays them on top of each other to create these weird kind of 3D models you can just kind of look at. The website is just kind of an art installation by internet artists Johan Heemskerk and Dirk Paceman's. Together, Johan Heemskerk and Dirk Paceman's make up this art group collective known as Jody, which you will hear about later in the iceberg. Actually, while we're at it, this entry right here, Jody, is, I think, just referring to these two. They're responsible for quite a few weird, artsy kind of websites. Liao. I can't be too confident what this is referring to because Liao is literally just lion in Portuguese, but my best guess is that it was referring to the mascot of an anti-drug education campaign in Brazil known as Proerd. The mascot of this Brazilian anti-drug campaign is known as Leão de Proerd, or the Lion of Proerd, and he's often used by Proerd to spread anti-drug sentiments and educate people about how drugs are dangerous and whatnot. Eventually, a lot of Brazilian people though started making memes out of this lion guy. I don't really think it goes really anywhere beyond that. Brazil has had its fair share of drug problems over the years, and so people start memeing on the anti-drug mascot guy. Enrix. Enrix is referring to a pretty mysterious website that described a supposed deadly genetic disease known as Enrix. The entire website was written in Thai and this weird, unintelligible, distorted text. The website also featured this weird picture of this doctor that if you click on her, the website would become just more distorted and crazy. For a long time, no one really knew what was going on with the website, but in 2018, a game designer by the name of Paul Hubens basically came out and said that he created the Enrix website as an ARG in his spare time. Green Pill. So I understand most of you watching this probably already understand this already, but I should establish this first just in case. You know how in the Matrix, Morpheus offers Neo the red pill or the blue pill, and if you take the red pill, you'll be able to understand the truth or the reality of everything and escape the Matrix. Well, sometimes some right-wing people on the internet like to describe themselves as red pill because, you know, they understand the true nature of the government and social constructs and stuff like that. So this leads us to the term green pilled, which kind of means like red pilled but more extreme, maybe. Someone who's called green pilled means that they believe in shadow governments and the Illuminati and believes in a lot of conspiracy theories. Green pilled isn't really a term that a lot of people on the internet actually use though. Whereas with the term red pilled, you will sometimes find people out there who are genuinely using it. The term green pilled is pretty much always a kind of ironic joke. It mainly comes from this webcomic character called Green Pill, who's supposed to represent fringe conspiracy theorists. Temple OS. Temple OS is a biblically themed operating system. The operating system was developed by a man by the name of Terry Davis. He suffered from bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, and after experiencing a self-described revelation, he proclaimed that God had told him to develop an operating system that would act as God's third temple. The operating system is a mess, and it's very archaic, but also pretty robust and functional given the circumstances. Terry Davis. During the development of this operating system, Terry Davis was on a steep decline in his mental health, and it can be seen in these videos and posts he would make explaining and updating people on the development of Temple OS. He basically believed that he was being stalked by the US government for some reason, and he was also like really racist. 112 Dirtbag. I already covered this one in my YouTube iceberg, so I'm just gonna get through this one really quick. Basically, this woman by the name of Mara Murray just completely went missing after she crashed her car on Route 112 in New Hampshire. And on the 8-year anniversary of her disappearance, a YouTube channel by the name of 112 Dirtbag uploaded a video to YouTube where it's just this old guy sitting in front of a camera laughing, and it led people to think that this old guy was a person who kidnapped Mara Murray, and the video was him trying to mock Mara Murray's family. Eventually, an investigation was done into this 112 Dirtbag guy who uploaded the video, and it turned out that he was just some mentally unstable dude who was just trying to insert himself into the situation because he wanted attention and he was crazy, and he really had nothing to do with the disappearance of Mara Murray. Yume Nikki. Yume Nikki is an indie game that was released in 2004, where you play as this silent protagonist by the name of Madutsuki, and you explore this weird, surreal dream world of hers. The game doesn't really have much of a clear objective beyond just wandering around the sprawling dream world. Many people like to speculate and interpret what the game is really about, but really, due to the vague and surreal nature of the game, no one's really right or wrong about it. The game has garnered a small but cult following, with many fans being drawn to the mysterious and cryptic nature of the game. Max Headroom. Max Headroom is a fictional character created by director Rocky Morton, and his whole thing is that he's supposed to be the world's first computer-generated TV personality. There's a Max Headroom movie, there's a Max Headroom television series. He was even part of a Coca-Cola advertisement campaign. The reason I think this is on the iceberg is because in 1987, a broadcast signal from 2 television stations in Chicago were hijacked and the broadcasts were interrupted by a guy wearing a Max Headroom mask. During the hijack, the guy wearing the Max Headroom mask started rambling off nonsense and talking about Max Headroom's endorsement of Coca-Cola, and eventually during one of the hijacks, another guy comes on camera and the dude with the Max Headroom mask just starts spanking him on the butt with a fly swatter. I can't show it to you because the dude's butt is hanging out, but I think you get the idea that it was just some random nonsensical type crap. The culprits behind this hijacking and the person in the Max Headroom mask were never caught, and the situation happened over 30 years ago, so they likely never will be caught. John Teeter. Alright, so in late 2000, on multiple message boards online, a person by the username John Teeter claimed that he was a time traveler from 2036 who had been sent back in time in a United States government time travel project to retrieve an old 1975 IBM 5100 computer. Apparently, he needed this old IBM 5100 computer to debug some legacy computer programs in 2036, and the only computer that had the right code and the right assets to do this was this old IBM computer. This John Teeter person made many predictions about the future, such as there being a civil war in the United States in 2004 that would lead the United States to split into 5 individual factions, with the new capital being in Omaha, Nebraska. He predicted that in 2015 there would be a World War III where the United States and Russia would trade nukes with each other and kill over 3 billion people. He also predicted that there would be a computer bug similar to Y2K that would happen in 2038, where basically all computers that ran a 32-bit system would just fail, and it would just leave humanity in disarray. At one point, people asked him to show pictures of his time machine, and he actually did, and apparently this time machine was installed on the back of a 1966 Chevrolet convertible, so a little bit on the nose. In March 2001, John Teeter ended his posts after he claimed he was returning to the future, and as you can see, many of his predictions turned out to be pretty off. In 2004, the United States did not go through a civil war, and 2015 came and went, and the world didn't go into all-out nuclear war, so this John Teeter thing garnered quite a bit of attention at the time. And although no one's ever been specifically outed as John Teeter, many people speculate that an entertainment lawyer by the name of Larry Harbor was behind John Teeter, as it was discovered that he was the CEO of something called the John Teeter Foundation, a for-profit group that basically sought the profit off of John Teeter by selling merchandise and stuff like that. LSD Dream Emulator. LSD Dream Emulator is a Japanese PlayStation game conceived by Japanese artist Osamu Sato. LSD Dream Emulator is an interesting game. Basically what you do is you walk around and explore these weird, trippy, surreal environments with really no objective or explanation for what's going on. If you bump into any object in the game, you'll be teleported to another random location, or sometimes it'll give you access to these weird random videos you can watch. After each one of these dreams where you explore these environments, you'll be taken back to this dream chart thing, and the dream chart will be filled out based on what you did in your dream. But no one on the internet really seems to even know how this dream chart works. No one knows why some squares will be filled out if you do some things and why some other squares will be filled out if you do other things. In fact, even the LSD Dream Emulator fan wiki says, quote, "Many websites even state that the English public have yet to be able to figure out exactly how the game works." Heartbeat in the Brain. Okay. Heartbeat in the Brain is a film where a, at the time, 27-year-old woman by the name of Amanda Fielding drills a hole in her forehead with a dentist's drill. Apparently, this Amanda Fielding woman believed that if she drilled a hole in her forehead, it would allow oxygen to flow through her brain better and allow her to achieve a higher state of being or a higher state of consciousness or something. After being unable to find a doctor to perform the procedure on her, she just went ahead and did the procedure on herself and filmed it. The film was called Heartbeat in the Brain, and it was originally screened in 1978 at an art gallery in New York, but afterwards the film just kind of disappeared. Short bits of the film were featured in a documentary called Hole in the Head, which is a documentary about trepitation, and these eventually did surface online. But the film in its entirety was thought to be completely lost, until it was apparently found and screened at the Institute of Contemporary Arts in London in 2011. Amanda Fielding, the woman who drilled a hole in her head, is, as far as I can tell, still alive today. In fact, she's the founder of a group called the Berkeley Foundation. The Berkeley Foundation is a charitable trust that does research into neuroscience and the effects of psychoactive substances on the brain. And this group has actually done some research with some pretty high-profile groups like King's College London and Johns Hopkins University in the US. I don't know, I just find it weird that someone who literally drilled a hole in their head with a dentist drill is also mentally stable enough to create a functioning and somewhat respected research group. The Death of Pablo. So Kanye West has an album called The Life of Pablo. Basically, a group called the Pablo Collective that was formed on the 4chan music board made a remix of The Life of Pablo called The Death of Pablo. In some ways, this album looks to build off of Kanye's original Life of Pablo album. For example, in Kanye West's The Life of Pablo album, there's two songs called Father Stretch My Hands Part 1 and Part 2, but in the Death of Pablo remix of this album, there's a song called Father Stretch My Hands Part 3. Beyond this, overall, the music itself is kind of all over the place. It has a very experimental sound. It sometimes has this weird kind of like industrial sound to it. Interviews with Kanye and samples of his speech at concerts are woven into the audio too, and it jumps between this kind of like soothing ambient sound to these harsh industrial noises. Tulpamancy. A tulpamancer is someone who conjures a tulpa. A lot of people in the tulpa community will give you differing answers on what a tulpa is, but basically it's an imaginary friend. Tulpamancers will often describe their tulpa as another person living in their head. There's a fairly large tulpa community on the internet, and they have guides and stuff on like how to create your own tulpa. Tulpamancy has found its way into other online communities too. There's some tulpamancers in the brony community. There's some tulpamancers among a lot of anime fans, with the idea being that they can like turn their favorite character into their imaginary friend. There's been very little scientific research done in the field of tulpamancy, so it's kind of hard to weigh in on the legitimacy of it. It's kind of interesting nonetheless, though. Sissy Hypno. Sissy Hypno is a genre. Yeah, I should have saw it coming. Sissy Hypno is a genre of video or audio that is supposed to hypnotize the male viewer into acting more feminine or act like perhaps a sissy. It usually involves a female speaker saying demeaning or humiliating things to the male listener, and it's for people who like being demasculated, basically. There's some people out there who just can't get enough of that sissy hypno. I2P. I2P, which stands for the Invisible Internet Project, is a network that allows for anonymous, censorship-resistant peer-to-peer communication. I2P uses an overlay network that enables users to send and receive messages anonymously, and the primary goal of I2P is to eventually create a network within the internet that allows for this anonymous communication. I2P is used for a number of different things, such as communicating anonymously, browsing the web anonymously, and anonymously distributing files. Satoshi Nakamoto. Satoshi Nakamoto is the alias or pseudonym used by the person or group of people that developed Bitcoin and the blockchain technology that we use today. Many people like to speculate who this Satoshi Nakamoto person or group of people is, but really no one has any concrete evidence. This person basically just developed Bitcoin, set it loose out into the wild for people to use it, and then did. And no one knows where they are now or who they are. One of the more scary parts about this Satoshi Nakamoto person is that whoever it is estimated to have around 1 million Bitcoin, which right now translates to be around 40 billion US dollars. The thing is there's only about 18.5 million Bitcoin in circulation right now, and with Satoshi Nakamoto having 1 million Bitcoin just by himself, if he just dumped all of his Bitcoin at once, he could effectively just completely tank the market. As of right now, though, it seems like Satoshi Nakamoto hasn't moved any of his Bitcoin. No one is exactly sure why. Some people think he's just waiting for the perfect time to strike. Some people think he's purposely not moving his Bitcoin to help ensure the prosperity and stability of Bitcoin. Whoever this Satoshi Nakamoto person is, though, definitely has a lot of power. LHOHQ. LHOHQ is referring to a website by the name of Laughing Horses Orifice Headquarters. The website is incredibly weird, and I can't really show much of it due to the graphic nature of the website, but the website is made up of a ton of weird cryptic imagery and cryptic text. The website makes a lot of references to US politics and conspiracy theories. Pretty much anything and everything on the website you can click on, and it will take you to either another part of the website or some random cryptic YouTube video. The website is pretty hard to just describe in broad strokes, just due to how all over the place it is. One of the more notable aspects of the website, though, is there is a section that basically features a bunch of phone numbers and emails that are supposedly for some pretty high-ranking U.S. government officials and politicians. I think this kind of goes without saying, but I highly advise you to not get involved with these phone numbers or emails, because there could be some pretty serious consequences. That being said, it looks like a lot of these phone numbers and email addresses are grabbed from a service called Intellius Premier, which is a pay-to-use service that anyone can use to basically run background checks on people. It's also quite likely that this website could have pulled some emails and phone numbers from that WikiLeaks scandal in 2016. Although Laughing Horses Orifice HQ is a complete rabbit hole with so much weird stuff going on with it, it is most likely just an artistic thing made by a group of film professors and cinematographers who go by the alias Laughing Horses Orifice HQ. There are some short films you can find online that are made by this group that goes by LHOHQ, and this group is made up of film professors like David Witzling and cinematographer Mark Escribano. Some of these short films are actually even featured on the LHOHQ website, leading people to make this connection between this website and this art group, and making a lot of people believe that this film group is responsible for this website. Oct282011 is referring to a website by the name of Oct282011.com. The website would try and outline how the state between being awake and conscious and dreaming is somehow important, and they would try and explain it through some really weird math and complicated quantum mechanics. Some of the more interesting aspects of the website is that at one point, the website held a countdown timer that was set to end on October 28th, 2011. When that date hit, nothing really happened. The website also outlined this procedure thing you could do with a friend that would supposedly allow you to link your minds by staring into each other's eyes for a while. The website went down in 2015. Until this day, no one can really be 100% certain what was going on with this website, but I mean, this is totally something where you look at it and go, yeah, this is an ARG. Wizard Chan. Wizard Chan is an online image board that's made up almost entirely of adult male virgins. This isn't a joke. The slogan of the website is disregard women, acquire magic. There are male virgins of all ages on this website, but those who remain a virgin past the age of 30 are considered wizards. To give you an idea of what the culture of this website is like, the third rule of the website is do not post about voluntary real-life social activities. Example, going to a bar or party. The website is an offshoot of 4chan. Most of the conversation on the website revolves around being depressed and lonely, hating women, and the reclusive NEET lifestyle. NEET being not in education, employment, or training. A858. In 2011, a Reddit account by the name of A858 created a subreddit also by the name A858. On this subreddit, this user would post a bunch of cryptic hexadecimal codes on the daily. Eventually, people started taking notice of this subreddit and started forming groups on other subreddits to try and solve these codes. These codes posted on this A858 subreddit, though, proved to be really hard to decipher, and very few of them actually were able to be solved. In 2016, right as the subreddit started gaining attention from some news outlets and people started making progress in cracking the codes, the subreddit was just randomly privatized, and the subreddit has stayed private pretty much ever since. People were pretty confused when the A858 subreddit closed, and eventually a person claiming to be behind the A858 subreddit came out and said that now that the subreddit was closed, there was not enough public information out there that would be needed to solve the puzzles. This whole A858 situation has been pretty quiet since then. Of course, many people theorize what this whole A858 thing was about. Some people think it was an attempt at recruiting cryptographers. Other people theorize that it was a way for certain groups to communicate with one another through these codes. And some people just think it was an ARG that was just made up to get attention. Stalag. Stalag is a group of Dutch and Belgian musicians who came together basically with the intention of creating the most painful, unlistenable noise possible. Their music is made up of just screaming and ambient droning sounds in combination with some blast black metal beats. In an interview with the group, they said at one point that one of the members of the group works at a mental institution in Holland, and so they would get people at this mental institution to record screaming for them. Apparently, they even got someone from this mental institution with schizophrenia to draw the cover art for their third project, Project Misanthropia. I'll play a quick snippet of Stalag so you get an idea of what we're talking about here. DMT Nexus. DMT Nexus is a wiki and forum for all things related to DMT and other psychedelic drugs. Once again, the legality of this website is pretty dicey. You know, with the DMT and other psychedelic drugs often being illegal in a lot of countries. r/ur. So CSS, or Cascading Style Sheets, is a language used to basically design how a website looks and how things like images and buttons and like interactive things on the website look. The way old Reddit worked was if you had a subreddit, you could basically go in and change the CSS of the subreddit to design it however you wanted it to look. This led to this subreddit called r/ur, which I guess the whole goal of it was just to push CSS to its absolute limits to create the weirdest, the most confusing looking subreddit possible. The way Reddit works now is you can't really use CSS to design your subreddit, so nowadays r/ur isn't quite as much of a mess as it used to be. You can kind of tell what's going on now, but that old r/ur is just Meat could be referring to a lot of different things, though I think it's referring to this YouTube ARG called Meat Sleep. It's not a super interesting ARG, but basically the idea is that there's this cannibal who kidnaps and eats people, and the story about this cannibal is communicated through a series of weird cryptic YouTube videos. Freenet. Freenet is a software that allows you to anonymously share files, browse, and publish things called free sites. These free sites are basically websites that are only accessible through Freenet. This is kind of an oversimplification, but Freenet is made up of a network of connected computers, and every Freenet user is required to contribute to this network by giving the network some internet bandwidth and a portion of their hard drive to store data on. It's basically an internet you use if you're scared of or don't trust your government. Terminal 00. Terminal 00 is a huge, sprawling website that is made up of geometric art and imagery, flashing visuals, incredibly long, sprawling pages with like hidden links in them. And if you're just stumbling across this website, it will seem very weird. The website has so many different interconnected pages to explore. It's pretty overwhelming, actually. Though the website is just an art project by an author by the name of Angus Nicknevin. In fact, if you dig through the website long enough, eventually you'll just find an FAQ where Angus Nicknevin explains that this is just an art project of his. Faux? I think it's pronounced faux. Faux is referring to a website by the name of faux.neocities.org. It's another really sprawling website with unique art and imagery, and it gives off a similar vibe to Terminal 00. The website covers a lot of ideas of transcendence and transhumanism, but this website is actually a kind of fan site for an anime called Serial Experiments Lane. I've never actually watched the anime, but apparently it's about this girl by the name of Lane who gets involved with this virtual reality thing called The Wired. I probably made some fans of that show mad, but basically this is just a fan site for that anime. Ogrish. Ogrish is a now defunct shock website. Kind of the idea behind it was that it was supposed to be this alternative news source that was all like, we're gonna show you the true nature of reality. Can you handle it? Don't look away. And then the website would just have a bunch of videos of people dying while fighting in wars or being executed. The website ended up getting in a lot of trouble for posting videos of people without their permission, and like I said, it's gone now. Why? This entry on the iceberg is likely referring to a website by the name of www.yyyyyyy.info. The website is a complete mess, and every time you reload the website, it's a completely new mess. I think it's a similar situation to the /Uber thing, where it's just a website that's just pushing web design to the absolute limits to create the most complicated, terrible-looking thing possible. The website probably doesn't have much of a purpose, although I was able to find a connection between the website and this guy by the name of Michael Guidetti, who got his Bachelor of Fine Arts at the California College of Arts in San Francisco. He probably just made this website as some weird art project. Solar Plexus Clown Glider. A solar plexus clown glider is a paranormal creature that can supposedly infect the minds and bodies of vulnerable and weak people. The idea of this solar plexus clown glider creature kind of came to fruition when in the 90s an email was forwarded around that basically claimed by simply hearing or thinking about the words solar plexus clown glider, you would become susceptible to being infected by one of them. A lot of people have accounts of being infected by this solar plexus clown glider creature. Pretty old internet legend. Bob Subgenius. Bob Subgenius is likely referring to a religion known as the Church of the Subgenius. The Church of the Subgenius kind of started out as this parody of other religions, but in some cases it kind of evolved into a more legitimate religion that people started taking actually kind of seriously. The Church of the Subgenius teach ideas that revolve around this figure who goes by the name of J.R. Bob Dobbs, who is described as this supernaturally gifted salesman who was contacted by an alien and came to Earth with the mission of bringing something called Slack to people. You're probably wondering, what is this Slack thing that Bob is bringing to Earth? Well, the Church of the Subgenius has never explicitly explained what this Slack thing is, but apparently if you obtain Slack, it will allow you to live a comfortable and relaxing life, and J.R. Bob Dobbs embodies Slack. The history and beliefs of the Church of the Subgenius are super long and convoluted and complicated and really abstract, and they really just need a video of its own due to how weird it is. The creators of this religion, Ivan Stang and Phil O'Drummond, have basically gone out and said that they created the religion with the intention of it being satirical, but as the Church of the Subgenius started garnering followers who took it seriously, they started expressing regret and disdain because the church kind of became the very thing they were trying to satirize. Cameraheads. Cameraheads are these supposed human-like creatures that have cameras implanted into their bodies, so they are like these walking surveillance systems. There's stories out there about these supposed camerahead creatures working for the government or for aliens, things along those lines. The actual weird part about cameraheads is not exactly cameraheads themselves, but where the idea of cameraheads originated from. Many people claim that Cameraheads originated from a creepypasta that was around in the late 2000s, though no one can find this supposed creepypasta, as it either went completely missing or it just went undocumented. This has led some people to speculate that there really never even was an original Cameraheads creepypasta, but instead Cameraheads in the Cameraheads creepypasta is just a misremembered amalgamation of different creepypastas and other media. Most reported memories of this creepypasta are generally pretty vague, but most of them usually follow this story of a man finding an abandoned bag in a forest, and upon searching the bag, he finds a tape, a broken camera, and a letter that says, "I killed a camerahead." And after this character starts investigating into what a camerahead is, he starts being stalked by cameraheads, and he kind of just descends into madness. Disclaimer, I am by no means promoting piracy. Piracy is illegal. Do not commit piracy. The Eye. The Eye is pretty much a giant file-sharing website. The Eye claims that its goal is to archive and preserve any and all data relating to websites, books, games, software, video, audio, and other digital mediums. The legality of this website is pretty dicey, with the whole file-sharing of copyrighted movies and music and games thing. So, Evangelion AUS 07. This entry is referring to a situation where a guy on Reddit reported that he had bought a DVD collection of Neon Genesis Evangelion called Neon Genesis Evangelion Collection 07, and for the most part the DVD was completely fine, except for when you went onto this section of the menu called the Magi Files and waited a couple seconds, a woman in a bikini would flash onto the screen for a couple seconds and then just disappear. A lot of people for a while believed that his story was fake, and the video he showed of it happening was fake, but eventually people contacted the manufacturer of the DVD, and the manufacturers of this specific DVD did say that it was real, and that it was just some really weird, unintentional production and distribution error. Apparently the manufacturer was also distributing a DVD that was a documentary about this woman, some just really weird mix-up, and somehow parts of this documentary ended up in the Evangelion DVD TimeCube. TimeCube is referring to a website called timecube.com that was created by this man by the name of Otis Eugene Ray, and this website outlines a theory of everything that was called the TimeCube. On this TimeCube website, it would explain that there was this thing called a TimeCube that was this model of reality, and all other physics and models of reality were just completely wrong. The explanations for how specifically this TimeCube worked are incredibly confusing and inconsistent and don't really make any sense at all. Despite this, though, the creator of the TimeCube, Otis Eugene Ray, was so confident in the TimeCube that at one point he said he would provide $10,000 to anyone who could disprove the TimeCube. Many people over the years tried to disprove the TimeCube to Otis Ray, but of course he was the only judge over whether the explanations actually disproved it or not, so he ended up never giving up those $10,000. Many people over the years tried to ask Otis Ray to explain the TimeCube more in depth, but his explanations were always super confusing and hard to follow. And in fact, at one point he was invited to the Georgia Institute of Technology so he could try and explain the TimeCube to people, but once he got there and started talking, pretty much everyone just made a laughingstock out of him. Many people speculate that Otis Ray had some sort of mental disability, and although the TimeCube still doesn't really make any sense, it does continue to live on as a meme. The Despair Code. The idea of the Despair Code comes in many different forms, but the basic idea is that the Despair Code is this series of ideas that if you think them, you will just go into an instant, complete state of existential despair. What exactly these ideas are kind of unclear, but the stories about the Despair Code usually say that the Despair Code usually involves thoughts about how nothing really matters and we're all going to die one day, stuff like that. The idea of the Despair Code also comes in another form where it's this idea that there are certain specific images that can evoke a sense of despair and sadness if someone views them. So it leads to there being these images or memes floating around with these just random objects, and the idea is that these random objects come together to make a despair code or something like that. N-Chan. Too many normies for you on 4chan? Too many FBI agents for you on 8chan? Well then maybe N-Chan is the place for you. N-Chan is basically just another image board for greasy internet people, similar to the likes of 8chan or 4chan, but more extreme still. Oemio. Oemio is a website that when I first landed on the homepage, I had no goddamn clue what was going on. The web design is just so confusing and weird that it legitimately took me around like 45 minutes just to figure out what the website even was. Eventually I found a link to a Discord server associated with this website, and I talked to who I assume is the developer of the website, and he explained that Oemio works in tandem with a voice calling app called Zello, and Oemio transcribes a live spoken word into text. It's It's weird though, because this website also hosts a bunch of like games and weird like activities you can do, a bunch of like art you can look at. It's definitely a weird website, but I think overall it serves a purpose, although the web design is, in the way it looks and the way it's laid out, is just super confusing. Dark.fail is a website on the ClearNet that lists off a bunch of links to dark web websites. .clos or .ellen. These are both just domains that are used on the dark web. You know, we got .com, .org, .net on the dark web. Sometimes you'll see .clos or .ellen. WorldCorp. WorldCorp Enterprises is a pretty mysterious, now deleted website. The website had videos that contained themes of child trafficking and child abuse. Some of the videos just kind of flat out displayed child abuse. The website is now deleted, so not a whole lot was documented about this WorldCorp website. Although, unfortunately, one of the most common theories is that this website was set up as an ARG to promote WorldCorp's music, as on the WorldCorp website there was a link to their SoundCloud account. So yes, on SoundCloud there is a music group called WorldCorp Enterprises. They make it's rap music. So people think that basically they set up this shock website just to promote the SoundCloud music. As I stated earlier, the original WorldCorp Enterprises website is gone, but you can still listen to WorldCorp Enterprises music on SoundCloud, YouTube, and even Spotify. Till this day, no one is entirely sure what's going on with WorldCorp Enterprises, but WorldCorp Enterprises' promotion of their music has led some people to be a little bit suspicious. Like at some point, when legit human trafficking and child abuse gets involved, it stops being an ARG and becomes a legit crime case. Like if this all was just a scheme to promote WorldCorp's music, it has to be one of the scummiest things on the planet. Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is a podcast that covers paranormal events, conspiracy theories, and true crime. The stuff that's covered on the podcast is usually really obscure. It's a pretty good podcast. Kill Switch. This entry on the iceberg has to be referring to a film that first premiered in 2014 at the Woodstock Film Festival called Kill Switch. It's a documentary about how the government in different countries look to control the internet, and this can sometimes lead to censorship on the internet and can damage freedom of speech and democracy. The film kind of looks to push for an open and free internet, and the film received pretty okay reviews. Saint. I think this entry on the iceberg is referring to a YouTube channel called Saint. This YouTube channel features gameplay from just some really obscure indie games. Some of the later entries on this iceberg will relate back to this YouTube channel, so keep this one in mind. Wormhood Chronicles. So I couldn't find much on this one, but I think it is referring to a website called Wormwood Chronicles. I know Wormwood and Wormhood are different, but this Wormwood website is the only thing that I think would make sense. Overall, this Wormwood Chronicles website is pretty normal. The website covers various death metal and black metal artists and has a blog that's updated pretty often. There is a section of the website, though, called the Wormwood Files. This part of the website outlines a couple different conspiracy theories and paranormal events. Kanaguri. Kanaguri is a Japanese indie artist. They've made quite a bit of media ranging from music, animations, to video game. Pretty much anything made by this Kanaguri person is pretty out there and interesting. And this person is pretty obscure, so I think that's why it landed this far down on the iceberg. Sun Bathory Erzsébet. So Sun is this experimental metal band from Seattle, Washington. Their music is this really drony, dark, ambient black metal. I think this entry is referring to how on their song Bathory Erzsébet, they featured vocals from another metal artist by the name of Malefic. Allegedly what they did for his vocal take is they locked him in a casket and he had like severe claustrophobia and they just recorded him screaming. If you listen to the song Bathory Erzsébet, that definitely sounds like what's going on. Mexican sugar dancing. So I think Mexican sugar dancing is one of those things that really only exists on Urban Dictionary. Apparently Mexican sugar dancing is the act of taking a dead body and hooking it up with electricity to like puppeteer it around and do stuff. I guess the idea is that on the dark web there are red rooms where you can watch people do this. I don't really think it's a thing that actually happens, and if it does, it's incredibly limited. For the most part, I think it's just a story people make up for shock value. Illuminati Order. This entry on the iceberg is of course referring to something about the Illuminati. This entry might be referring to something specific, but just there's so much Illuminati stuff out there, it's hard to tell. Kanye Quest 3030. Kanye Quest 3030 was this indie game that was released in 2013, and at the time it got quite a bit of traction. The game was this RPG where you played as Kanye West and you went through a wormhole and you ended up fighting these clones of other rappers. The game was kind of just a joke, but overall it was received pretty well. In 2015 though, there was this Pastebin article that surfaced that outlined that there was a secret area you could access. There was this area in the game that if you interacted with this NPC, he would ask you what you wanted to do, and if you answered with the term ascend, you would be transported to this secret area of the game. Upon reaching this secret area of the game would tell you that you're not supposed to talk about this secret area of the game, and if you participated in this area of the game, you would be able to do something the game called Ascend. This area of the game featured a QR code that supposedly, if you scanned it, it would take you to a website that was an IP logger. Although as of right now, this website is down, and it doesn't seem like it actually ever was up. If you continue to go through this area of the game, you'd be asked a series of passwords, and the only way people were able to figure out these passwords was through data mining the game. Eventually, you'd reach a point where the game would tell you that if you wanted to continue ascending, you would need to give the game some personal information, such as your name and age and address, and some unnamed group would receive this personal information and help you with your ascension process. The game would make it seem like it was sending this personal information to someone online, but upon using network monitoring software, you could see that the game never actually connected to the internet and didn't actually send your information anywhere. No one really knows what was going on with this. The creator of this game is incredibly elusive. Nothing ever happened to anyone who gave the game their personal information. If you ask me, the odds are it was just an attempt at an ARG. Worlds. This entry is likely referring to this online multiplayer chat game called Worlds Chat. It was one of their earlier online chat games, and in its earlier years, it had a pretty sizable player base. These days, the player base of this game is incredibly small, and you'd imagine by now that the servers would come down, but they are actually still up. The main reason these servers are able to stay up is because the owner of this game, Tom Kidron, is what people call a patent troll. Since Worlds Chat was one of the earlier online multiplayer games, Tom Kidron filed a patent related to it. Tom Kidron owns patent 7,180,690, which is for a system and method for enabling users to interact in a virtual space. Sounds pretty broad, right? Sounds like pretty much any online game would use this, right? Well, that's kind of the point. Basically, Tom Kidron and his legal team just sit around and file lawsuits against a bunch of online games for violating this patent. They've sued Blizzard, they've sued Bungie, and a lot of the times they'll win and make money off of it. This is the only reason this game makes money, and they can keep the servers up. Very few people actually play this game, so whenever you boot it up and go into a server, it just feels very empty and kind of creepy. On 4chan, there's been rumors that this Worlds Chat game nowadays hosts some secret cults or secret illegal networks, although evidence for these things actually existing is very anecdotal. FWD7. I could find very little information on FWD7. Whatever it is, it's really obscure and isn't very well documented. I found this old archived 4chan thread where this guy explains that something called FWD7 was some old email scam that led to a dead body, and that it's hard to find. This is probably what FWD is referring to. I've also heard some other people, though, think that this is related to some conspiracy theory related to the July 7th, 2005 London bombings. It's some conspiracy theory about the government really being behind the bombings. I'm not going to go any further in depth into it because I don't want to propagate conspiracy theories and having the YouTube hounds tracking me down. It's referring to one of these two things, though. GGGQEP. This entry is referring to a copypasta that's been floating around the internet for a while. There's this 8-paragraph long copypasta that outlines this thing called a gadolinium gallium garnet quantum electronic processor, or a GGGQEP. Basically, this copypasta outlines that there's this crystalline material out there called gadolinium gallium garnet that has certain unique properties that give it incredible potential to be used for data storage. So you could make like an incredibly large hard drive out of this stuff. The copypasta states that a 5-centimeter cube of this gadolinium gallium garnet, if processed and like formed into the right shape, could hold apparently 8,153 exabytes of data, with an exabyte of data being equivalent to 1 billion gigabytes. Then the copypasta goes on to say that if you were to combine the storage potential of this gadolinium gallium garnet with a quantum processor, you would be able to devise a supercomputer that could do pretty much anything. This supercomputer is what the copypasta is talking about when it says a gadolinium gallium garnet quantum processor. Then the copypasta goes on to say that the government or some secret societies or aliens are probably already using these supercomputers without our knowing. The science behind it is very shaky, and it really is nothing more than just, well, a copypasta. 4chan. 4chan is an image board similar to that of 4chan or 8chan, but on the dark web. If you're using 4chan, you care a lot about your anonymity. I think you can imagine the kind of people you'll find there. So I'm just going to get 3 of these ones out of the way really quick because they're kind of just the same thing. Gscope, Sybay, and Circus, all just dark web sites for not safe for life content. Apparently Circus actually used to be on the ClearNet, but after it got into some legal trouble, it moved onto the dark web. You know, just websites for general depravity. 14 / question mark, question mark, question mark. This entry on the iceberg is probably just referring to these 2 really obscure video slash question mark and 14 slash question mark question mark question mark. They're kind of weird games. They got this like psychological horror thing going on with them. There's not even like a creepy story or anything surrounding these games though. I think the reason they're on this iceberg is just because they are really obscure. Like the only gameplay of these games I could find is on Saint's YouTube channel, Schnell Online. In 2018, a person on 4chan had claimed that he'd heard rumors about this supposed game called Schnell Online. Apparently, this Schnell Online game was ran on the dark web, and the player base was made up of people trying to like hide from the government and were taking part in illegal activities. Following this post, people started looking around for this Schnell Online game, but no one could really even find evidence of its existence beyond just this post. Eventually, people did find gameplay of the game on Saint's YouTube channel. Remember him from earlier? The title of this gameplay video is Schnell Online by Olven Wiplanis, chatting with a player. If you do a little digging, you can figure out that Saint's real name is Olven Wiplanis. So people started connecting the dots a little bit, and it started looking like this Saint person is the guy who's behind this Schnell Online game. At one point, someone on Twitter just asked Saint if he was behind this game, and he just said yes. Apparently, this Schnell Online game was a project Saint was working on, but he's never actually finished it. It's hard to be certain, but it's possible that the person on 4chan who was claiming that this Schnell Online game was some illegal dark web game was actually just Saint who was making up the story to help garner attention for his game, rap.mp3. So upon doing research on this entry, I found a couple different leads as to what this is referring to. It could be referring to this urban legend about this Memphis rap group that allegedly murdered a person, and they recorded and sampled this murder and used it in one of their songs, although I can't seem to find any information on what rap group this was and what song this is in. It could also be referring to a conspiracy theory about how there is this rap song that just has such a binding and strong effect on the listener that it's being sampled in all chart-topping songs without us even knowing. Once again, I can find very little information on the specifics of this. There's not much information out there about what song is supposedly being sampled. 3301337.cf 3301337.cf was a website that hosted what seemed to be a puzzle that was related to aliens and conspiracy theories and a bunch of stuff like that. The website had a lot of imagery relating to aliens and Egyptians and numerics and religions. Some people think that this website was related to Cicada 3301 because the website has a 3301 in the name, and the Cicada 3301 logo could be found on the website. The website talks a lot about these things called primes, which I guess are kind of like prime numbers, and humanity has 2 out of the 7 primes, and we need to find the other 5 primes to protect ourselves from some aliens that are gonna come and attack us in the year 2111. Nowadays, if you try and visit this website, it'll take you to a page with a bunch of adult friend finder ads, although you can still view what the page looked like on the Wayback Machine. Serotonin Phobia. Serotonin Phobia, as far as I can tell, is the work of an indie game developer by the name of Serotonin. This Serotonin Phobia website features a bunch of different games that he's created. I'd imagine if you bumped into this website and had no idea what was going on, it would probably seem pretty weird. In fact, when you first land on the website, you get a message in your browser from the website saying, "Now I am in your computer." The website is just a place for this Serotonin person to feature his games. A lot of his games are pretty cool too. Unfortunately, a lot of them do not work as of right now due to the fact that Flash Player just died. And here we are. Real darknets aren't accessible to the average channer. Alright, so the quotation marks kind of led me to believe that this was a quote taken from somewhere specifically, but it doesn't look like it. I think what this entry on the iceberg is just trying to say is that a lot of websites on the dark web, you can't just like get a link and just go to them. To go to some websites, you'll have to meet some certain specific parameters, or maybe be put on a whitelist, or know some sort of password. Maybe I'm missing something here, but I think that's just what this is saying. And that was it. That was the internet iceberg. I think we've learned something today, and that is, it is incredibly important to go outside. If you manage to get to the end of this, good job. I mean, you made it this far, you might as well subscribe. Maybe even leave a like while you're at it. Anyway, this has been Parallel Pipes. Check out the Incoherent podcast, where me and a couple of friends talk about some random bullshit for a while. Anyway, bye.
I've just bought every single Nintendo home console ever. We've got a TV from the time of each one's release, and even the main Super Mario game for every single one. So let's see how much better the gaming experience has become. Nintendo's first home console, the NES, couldn't have come at a worse time in the West. The company had had huge success with their arcade machines, but when it finally came to entering the living room in the early 1980s, the entire video game market just so happened to be experiencing what's still known as the Great Video Game Crash of 1983. Put simply, everyone was making games consoles. There had become far too many to choose from, and every single one had their own separate, confusing selection of rushed, poor-quality games. The entire reputation of a video game console was the worst that it had ever been, to the point where critics were even saying that gaming is a fad and that the entire concept would actually die out in a couple of years. But this didn't put Nintendo off, and in fact they did something very clever to try and spin it to their advantage. They created a games console that looked nothing like a games console, and they called it the Nintendo Entertainment System to avoid the stigma that came with the term video game. They even bundled 2 controllers in the box to make it more of a family living room item than something just for the solo gamer. This was a calculated move. This entire package is so unbelievably old that it almost just looks alien, doesn't it? The controllers, the types of cables and the adapters you find here, none of it even resembles what we use today. I can't believe I'm about to switch on a console from 1985. And this TV, I've never seen anything like it. And apparently it turns on by... No. Let's try that again. Now we turn the console on. Wait. What? The game is booted up the second you turn the power button on. And you've actually got physical dials to be able to adjust the picture profile on the screen. This entire thing is just so satisfying. This is going to sound ridiculous, but bear with me here. Because with a 1.7 megahertz processor, a whole 2 kilobytes of RAM, and a maximum resolution of 240p, the NES was actually spec'd like a next-gen machine when compared to the Atari 2600 that people were playing before then. And as a huge fan of just video games in general, the craziest part of this for me is that this console is the console where Nintendo launched the first ever Zelda game, and more importantly, the first ever Mario game. Let's plug the Player One controller in. Oh my gosh. This feels like such a moment in gaming history. Like, imagine if you could have taken the small group of developers that made this and showed them what Mario would actually become today. You can hear that same jump sound even in today's games. And it's crazy that the entire game basically works with one face button. The text itself is kind of hard to read because of how low the resolution is, but the game is very playable even today. Regardless, this little red plumber was an instant hit. And when you combine Mario with the console's beautiful, clean graphics, its branding as a must-have toy instead of a games console, as well as its rock-bottom price of $250 in today's money, you can probably see how it became the most popular console in history, selling 61.9 million units, which was enough that Nintendo had arguably saved the entire video game industry. That by the time they had decided to release the NES's successor, they didn't even have to worry about a dying market anymore. And what a successor it was. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System, released about 5 years later at a much higher price tag of $450 in today's money, was basically an NES with every aspect dialed up to the max. For starters, the controller was probably the single most important controller ever made, bringing in a smoother, more hand-friendly design, and 2 extra face buttons, X and Y, that set the standard for how all future controllers would be made, and also shoulder buttons. All controllers up until this point relied almost entirely on your thumb as the only input. But this controller is what made gamers realize that actually every single finger could be an input. And this would allow for games with a new tier of complexity. Whether it be drifting in Super Mario Kart, or aiming your arm cannon diagonally in Super Metroid. Yeah, Nintendo loved using the word super. It was basically their way of saying next gen. There's a similarly enormous set of cables and adapters to last time, and then the SNES itself, which is actually lighter than I expected for something that's an absolute beast in performance. And I'm not exaggerating when I use the term beast. The way to calculate graphics power is a little complex for these early consoles, but just to give you an idea of how much more capable it could be, the SNES came with 64 times the amount of RAM versus their last machine. What is it with the pull tabs on these old TVs? I love the clickiness and everything. It's also so crazy that this is what the games used to look like. And then to turn the console on, there is a switch. A Nintendo Switch. Nintendo presents. Ah, that's so much better! The music in this video is giving me chills. And it's also noticeably higher resolution music than the last console. In a way, the SNES was the pinnacle of 2D gaming, just before the 3D era. With this much power, developers could basically make any 2D game they wanted to. So if we compare Super Mario World on the SNES versus Super Mario Bros. On the NES, the backgrounds feel so much more alive, with multiple layers moving at different speeds as you walk to simulate things being closer and further away from you. It's also a shocking amount sharper. Like, text on this is barely readable. This one has like no problems at all. And objects also have proper lighting and shadows for the first time ever. Now that that has become my benchmark, I can almost feel the wonder that people must have felt when stepping into this game for the first time. Why am I excited by the fact that Mario has a new spinny jump? The SNES didn't quite trounce the sales figures of the original NES, but for a console released only a few years later, the fact that it still sold 49 million units is nothing to be scoffed at. But with consoles like Sony's first PlayStation leading the charge into 3D gaming very shortly after, Nintendo had to find a way to keep up. Enter the Nintendo 64. Named after its new 64-bit chip that can now process data in larger chunks at a time, making it perfect for 3D. Man, this box is so wacky. Love it. And the controller, equally so. But as much as it does look like something Batman might throw at a villain's face, this was just as big of a deal as the SNES controller. Thanks to the invention of the analog stick by a Nintendo employee. You're going to start to notice a theme in this video, that even more so than the machines themselves, the key to Nintendo's console success is all about controller innovation. And then we've got the console, which is almost as weird looking as the controller. Now here's the thing, the Nintendo 64 had all the ingredients for a slam dunk console. Firstly, as you might have guessed by how it's literally named after its new processor, this was the most powerful console in the world. The fact that we had a 64-bit processor in a machine that was literally $300 in today's money, this was almost science fiction. And it made this thing approximately 30 times more powerful than the SNES. Or, what's even harder to grasp, 1,920 times more powerful than the NES. Why is there a button here? That makes no sense. But the analog stick was a game changer. The analog stick made the Nintendo 64 the most natural way to traverse 3D environments. Plus, the biggest thing that separated Nintendo from other console titans like Sony and Microsoft was the fact that they weren't just console designers, they were game developers. So they never just made the box and then hoped lots of great games were made for it. They made the box and the main game that you'd want to buy with it. I'm just now realizing this has 4 controller ports compared to 2 on every past console. The N64 was home to truly legendary games like Zelda Ocarina of Time, GoldenEye, and Super Mario 64. You bet we're gonna test it. Thankfully a TV I understand. I love these switches. And the other upside is that your pet can no longer turn your gaming console off. You can actually see it take a minute to get to the right level of brightness. Oh my gosh. I can't even begin to describe the difference here. Mario 64 might just be the most influential video game ever. You can see how Mario 64 was the proof of concept for how future 3D worlds would work. How you'd be able to move within them, how the camera would follow you, and how you'd be able to interact with objects inside of it. Remember, this is all new. You could argue that SNES games have actually aged better, because 2D games that look like that are still a thing now, whereas 3D games that look like this are not. But putting myself in the shoes of someone whose best gaming experience so far was that, and handing them this, I would have paid to see their reactions. So why didn't it do better? Even with all of this going for it, the N64 only managed to sell 32.9 million units in its lifetime, which almost makes it seem like Nintendo is trying so hard for nothing. And to put it simply, it's because they now had a major competitor in the form of PlayStation. The PS1, while not as capable on paper, beat Nintendo to market with a 3D-capable machine by a full 2 years, which was enough of a lead that all the pioneers who really wanted a 3D console, they already had one. This was no doubt extremely frustrating for Nintendo. So when it came time for their follow-up console, the GameCube, they made sure that they released closer to the next PlayStation, the PS2, and they made sure that they used a similar disc-based format, and they made sure that when it came to power, they beat it. And that with the machine itself, they outdid them completely. This is a very meaty console. Everything in this box is just much denser than before. The wiring, the controller that looks like it's from another planet, and of course the machine itself. It genuinely gives off the vibe of a mini supercomputer, apart from the cute little handle on top that also makes it look like a lunchbox. But the console does send a very clear message. You want to play 3D games with incredible graphics? This is the box you need. And it has the specs to back it up too. Compared to the N64, it's approximately 5 times more powerful. You ready for yet another nostalgia hit? Oh my gosh. That's the GameCube screen. You can instantly tell it's higher resolution. Gotta say, Nintendo was definitely playing the weird card here. Nothing about this controller makes any sense. Like, only one side of the controller has 2 shoulder buttons. The second analog stick is so tiny and strange. And the face buttons too. What is this arrangement? The shoulder buttons travel so far, and then when you get to the bottom they have this click. That's so nice. I can see why people still use this thing today. Right, Simba is behind the consoles. Please don't unplug anything. There we go. This is an enormous jump. Like, the amount of effects on display here is a world above. The water looks amazing. And you can even feel how hot it is in the game because of how heat distorts things that are further away. The resolution is 480p, or 4.5 times the number of pixels versus the N64, which is an enormous jump. But I wouldn't say it looks 4.5 times as sharp, which is at least in part due to the fact that the N64 was designed with CRT TVs in mind. And also the fact that with later consoles, Nintendo has opted for a smoother, more refined look. I almost feel bad for Nintendo, because even with the intense focus on trying to make the best console they possibly could, even with an exceptional controller and a pretty reasonable price of $330 in today's money, the GameCube sold even worse than the N64, with a total of 21.75 million units. And you could point to the lack of online gaming as a reason, or maybe the fact that the GameCube focused too much on Nintendo's own games and lacked third-party support. But I think the crux of it is just the competition. The PS2 it was up against sold like nothing we've ever seen before, at 158 million units. Not to mention, Xbox had just joined the battle too, with huge games like Halo and Fable further squeezing Nintendo's share of the gaming pie. But this failure taught Nintendo their most important lesson yet. It's time to talk about the Wii. And if you're enjoying this video, then a sub to the channel would be really good.
Way up here, right at the edge of oxygen, in space. O2 satellite keeps you connected in more places than ever before. So even when you're far from everything, you won't have to miss a thing. Introducing O2 satellite, essential for living.
Breathe new life into your space with the new season Timeless Collection, exclusive to John Lewis. A curated edit inspired by the British coastline, with soft tonal layers for an effortless pared-back aesthetic. Shop now only at John Lewis.
Well, as usual, the only way we're going to settle this is through a series of challenges with the LEGO Star Wars Smart Playsets. I think my dramatic flair will come in handy for this.
It took until this point, 2006, for Nintendo to realize that they didn't want to compete with PlayStation and Xbox anymore. But more importantly, that they didn't need to. That the joy of gaming didn't require the most chunky, extreme-powered machine. And so with this console, there was a complete paradigm shift in thinking. This is when Nintendo started focusing on fun. And in doing so, created their most successful, widely appealing console ever. In fact, without even unboxing the console, you can already see how they managed to appeal to the everyday person who might not even call themselves a gamer. This is the most organized console package I've ever seen, with 2 drawers to separate the different sets of parts, and it comes with literally everything. An enormous operations manual, a stand to keep the console upright. There's yet another controller that had never been seen before, and arguably the craziest one yet, even a case to protect the controller. Who does that? These companies make so much money off players breaking their controllers and then having to buy new ones. But there's more. You've got the sensor bar to detect motion from your controllers, a couple of cables for power and connection to the TV, and then the machine itself. And this is also very different. You can probably tell by how it only takes up a small part of the overall package. The console's tiny size, or its simple design, that's far less about trying to look like a high-end gaming rig like most consoles, and more about trying to blend in. That the promise of the Wii isn't really about the console. The hardware itself is only a 1.27 times improvement over the GameCube, which by gaming console standards is completely unheard of. And this must have been a very scary move for Nintendo to make, because each generation up until this point was all about power. More power was the entire way that you could offer gamers more possibilities within your games. And while Nintendo was sat here making 1.27 times improvements, Sony and Microsoft were making 20, 30x improvements to their hardware. But what it all came down to was this. This was when Nintendo's continuous focus on controller innovation finally paid off. You'll notice it looks a lot like a TV remote, and that even the Wii's interface looks like a TV's interface, with each app being a channel that you had to point your remote at. None of this was an accident. Given that Nintendo is now purposefully giving up on the traditional hardcore console gamer, they needed to make sure that this console was as simple as possible for the new, more casual audience they were now going after. People who may never have used a games console before. How do you do that? Well, make it as similar as possible to what they're already used to. Genius. We've got my own personalized me ready to go. Love this music. Such a headbanger. Alright, let's play some games. It's so weird, like, to play this game you also have to attach what they call the nunchuck accessory, just really to give you a joystick. Okay, so you can definitely tell that the game objects have stepped up in complexity. The game is also a little bit sharper, but it definitely doesn't feel next gen. To be honest, I'd say the biggest change as far as the gameplay is concerned is more the ambition of the title itself. Nintendo's gone from exploring an island to exploring galaxies. But do you know what actually sealed the deal for this console? It was the fact that every single Wii at launch came bundled with a free copy of Wii Sports, which was little more than a mini-gaming concept. 5 different sports that you can play with these almost comically low-budget looking characters. Gamers laughed at it, but their grandmas didn't. For a casual gamer, this was the most seamless, organic gaming experience they've ever had before. You could have your entire family playing at the same time, you could customize these characters to look like the people playing, and the gameplay itself required, no joke, 0 explanation. All leading the Wii to shatter everyone's sales expectations at 102 million units. But the best part of this is that they did this not by stealing Sony and Xbox's market share, but instead bringing a whole new audience into the world of gaming. So, Nintendo finally got that big break they worked so hard for. But where'd you go from there? Well, the Wii U.
You! No, not me, you! Yes, I am you!
And I gotta say, this is the least Nintendo-feeling unboxing experience. Very much a weighty, premium, more mature package than the more toy-like appearance of past consoles. Another enormous manual pack, again, a free game in the box, perhaps trying to replicate the success of Wii Sports with the Wii. And being the premium pack, this box is absolutely rammed with all manner of peripherals. And we haven't even got to the second part of the package, which has the console. Oh my gosh, this is the best feel I've ever experienced. It's really good. And then, yet another completely new type of controller. So here's what I think happened with the Wii U. Nintendo thought, okay, we've got the casual gamer. The Wii brand is so strong and uncontested that when we release the next gen Wii, all those casual gamers are obviously going to buy it. But how do we make this also appeal to traditional gamers? Because remember, that's where the major money is. While the original Wii proved that casual gamers will buy consoles, they tend to be far less interested in buying lots of games for them. This is why I think Nintendo's gone for such mature packaging. This is why they've offered the console in both a casual basic version as well as this slick black premium version. This is why Nintendo's gone back to making big power jumps, with the Wii U's graphics processing unit being slated as 20 times more powerful than the Wii's, making it approximately 240,000 times more powerful than the original NES. And this is why they came up with the Wii U gamepad. This is the key selling point in Nintendo's marketing. A gamepad that can connect to the console over Wi-Fi and stream the game running on the console onto the screen of your handheld, which had 2 major implications. That you could A, play the majority of your games entirely on the gamepad, providing you were in range, which meant that even if someone else wanted to use the TV to watch the sports game, you could still carry on using your console in its entirety, which is actually wildly impressive to look at. This is so much slicker and sharper and faster than the Wii's interface, but also, it allows you to have a dual-screen experience. Nintendo had already found with their handheld DS consoles that there was an appetite for one screen that showed you the main gameplay, and then a secondary screen that you could interact with. And the Wii U basically brought that same concept into the home console realm. The gamepad truly feels like it was designed for the real nerd gamer. So, me. Well, Nintendo made sure that the Wii U also still worked with their old Wii motion controllers to capture that same magic for the casual player. Oh wow, this is true next generation compared to that. This immediately makes the Nintendo Wii look old school. Oh, it's got real-time shadows too, so you can see as I hop under this tree, the shade is also present on my character. As far as graphics are concerned, this is an everything upgrade. This is textures, lighting, shadows, effects. This is 720p gaming running at 60 frames per second. The jump is literally the difference between feeling retro and feeling modern day. The problem, though, is that I think in trying to appeal to both serious and casuals, they've actually appealed to neither. They've tried to make the console look and sound similar to the Wii, to signal to the casual fans that this is the new Wii, but in doing so have made it thoroughly unexciting for the serious gamers, who dismissed it out the gate as just more simple minigames. This new gamepad wasn't enough to satisfy the serious gamers, who wanted big screen experiences, not small screen experiences. And at the same time, it was just confusing to the more casual players, making the Wii U seem like an add-on for the Wii, as opposed to a new console entirely. And 3, it wasn't powerful enough to take on the PS4, but it was powerful enough that when paired with all the other sensors that you need to make this work, it was very expensive, with the deluxe pack that I've got here starting at $450 in today's money. As someone who was a handheld gamer first, I actually loved the Wii U, and I was so unbelievably jealous of those who could pre-order it and actually hold one of these in their hands. But it didn't take long to find out that commercially, this was a complete and utter failure, selling less than any other Nintendo home console in history.
Oh, no!
But it's funny how these things work, because for the second time, right after Nintendo's biggest failure, they were about to have their biggest success. The Nintendo Switch is actually a very similar idea to the Wii U before it, but it's just the extra 5 years of tech advancements that have happened since then allowed Nintendo? That would be a funny joke, Nintendo. No. But it's just the extra 5 years of tech advancements that have happened since then allowed Nintendo to actually execute the concept properly. It's a smaller, lighter box than before. You get a power cable, and then a bunch of accessories for, would you believe it, a completely new type of controller, the Joy-Cons. And then the console, which is a little different. Right, I'm just going to say it now. I think the Nintendo Switch is the most intelligently designed console on this planet. The idea is the same as the Wii U, of being able to play your games either on the big screen or in handheld, but because the power is located in the handheld itself, as opposed to having to stream it over Wi-Fi, you can take this console anywhere and instantly resume your game from where you left off. All while it charges up your Joy-Cons automatically. But it gets better, because the way these Joy-Cons are able to separate from the console and can work independently by just flipping them sideways means that you can have multiplayer gaming. And then the cherry on top is that by embedding them with gyro sensors, they've even managed to recreate the motion controls of the Wii and the Wii U without needing to stick a fiddly sensor on top of your TV. Now, the Switch is not super impressive to the nerd within me, with a pretty crummy display by smartphone standards, and occasional issues with the Joy-Con joysticks drifting even when you're not touching them, and also just the simple fact that this is not a big power upgrade, being only about 1.5 times the power of the Wii U, or about 370,000 times the power of the NES, which, when you put it that way, actually sounds really impressive. But the key thing is that in the exact same way that Nintendo managed to separate themselves from Sony and Xbox with the Wii, by targeting a completely new type of gamer, the Switch has also been separated by being a legitimate handheld console in its own right. Now, all that stuff about power said, this is still a definitively better gaming experience than the Wii U. It's a combination of modern graphical techniques, of more advanced ways to interact with the environment, more complex game mechanics, better control over the camera, just all the kind of modern quality of life improvements that you expect with a game today. Like, the way that I can spin the hat on my head by using motion controls is really immersive. The best compliment I could give it is that I play games on a PlayStation 5, and coming from that, this is good enough that it doesn't feel jarring. And when you pair the, frankly, genius design of the console itself with a games lineup that includes all the main series Pokemon games, Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Animal Crossing and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, I'm not even surprised that this thing has already sold 111 million units, and we're only partway through its life cycle. I don't think I've ever seen a more beautiful sight than what I'm looking at right now. Except maybe this app called Honeygame. It's a genuinely fascinating concept. When you install the app on your device, it runs as a background task, allowing you to share your internet connection and earn money from it. There are a whole load of trusted companies out there, like price comparison sites, who actually need access to lots of different internet connections from around the world like this, to, for example, be able to locate the cheapest deals for their users. And companies like this pay Honeygame to access this crowdsourced network, and Honeygame pays you for being a part of it. It's not going to pay for your next mansion in LA, but millions of people already use what they earn from Honeygame to pay for their Netflix or Spotify subscriptions. Just to be clear, it's not sharing any of your personal information with these companies, just literally whatever's left on your data plan that you weren't going to use anyway. And I have a gift for you. Hit the link in the description and use my code BOSS while signing up to Honeygame, and you get your first $5 right away.
Level up your games, phones, and tech for less at Sex.
I have finally unlocked every trophy in Ultimate Custom Night. With 10 to obtain, I'll show you the journey of how such a short trophy list took me 70 hours. From unlocking simple trophies like listening to a hippo for several minutes, to working my way up to beat the hardest challenge in the series, 50-20. However, with reports of the trophies being bugged, would I experience it? You'll see my struggles at the game. What is going on? What is going on? You'll see how I learned to improve. Right, we're good, we're getting the trophy. 50-15. And how I succeeded. Yes, come on! I've done it! Our first trophy was Consequences. On the main menu, there are 50 animatronics to enable from difficulty 1 to 20. Here, we only enable Old Man Consequences at level 1 and begin the game. When the animatronic pops up on screen, we'll want to catch the fish, where we're taken to a secret area, and we can talk to the character. The only way out is to enter through the top of the lake, spamming left and right to slowly descend, which unlocks our first trophy. This next one was called Nether, and it wants us to listen to all the secret death dialogue. Here, we want to enable Happy Frog, Ned Bear, and Orville to the maximum difficulty, so we're more likely to die to them. We're not guaranteed this secret death dialogue, so it can be a bit repetitive dying over and over, but eventually we'll hear them all for another trophy.
This is how it feels, and you get to experience it over and over and over again, forever. I will never let you leave.
Our next trophy required us to listen to all of Mr. Hippo's stories. Just like with the previous trophy, we'll have to die numerous times to hear the different stories that Mr. Hippo tells. And I won't be showcasing them all here because they end up taking several minutes. And our last simple trophy before properly playing the game was to experience all the deaths and jump scares. Surprisingly, not every animatronic does this. I took the process of elimination by enabling one animatronic at a time. However, there are a few secret animatronics we must go out of our way for. The first being Fredbear, who can only be summoned by setting Golden Freddy at difficulty 1. We want to bring up our monitor to access the cameras. Occasionally on the screen there's a chance these Faz coins spawn. We need to collect 10 of them with our cursor, because this allows us to buy the Death Coin at the shop. It is a powerful item which eliminates an animatronic for the entire night. Due to Golden Freddy's low difficulty rating, it takes a while for him to spawn. After flipping up and down the monitor several times, he eventually appears, so I used the Death Coin giving me the Fredbear jump scare. Then we needed Dee Dee to appear. She has a random chance to spawn at a certain time interval. Her purpose is to summon animatronics. However, we are hoping for the secret ones to spawn, these being Bonnet, Plushtrap, and Nightmare Chica. It would take me a while to get them, but upon dying to the last one, I unlocked the Endless Trophy. It was now time to learn and properly play the game to unlock the remaining trophies. Our next one would be Pond. This was to view all episodes of The Bear and the Fox, which are cutscenes that play after beating a night. We need to be very specific when going for this trophy, as we need to beat the nights that are multiple of 700. So it'd be 700, 1400, 2100, and so on. We get points by raising the difficulty level of animatronics, meaning over time we'll be adding more, and learning their mechanics on how to counter them to successfully win a night. In addition to completing them, there will also be another trophy occurring, Mine, which is to view all episodes of Toy Chica the high school years. Every time we beat a multiple of 700 nights, the cutscenes will alter between The Bear and the Fox to Toy Chica. We'll have to do this all the way to 9,100 points. I have described a few mechanics here and there with the previous trophies, but let's now go into detail. Firstly, these are the controls. Secondly, a night lasts 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Thirdly, we have our office, or well, one of 4, in which we unlock the rest by getting high scores. While very visually different, they share the same systems, such as the monitor, which once opened we can look at several cameras, as well as the duct and vents. We can also use an audio lure in the duct and a snare in the vents to help us against the animatronics that reside in there. Then there's the doors in our office. We have one on either side of the room, an upper vent and a lower one, in which we'll need to close accordingly. We also have the flashlight and mask to repel certain animatronics. We can't forget about the ventilation, ventilation. It is required to be reset several times throughout the night, otherwise our office will go dark, eventually leading us towards our death. Then there's the power that we need to maintain throughout the night, otherwise if it hits zero, we will lose. We have our power usage, which can be affected in several ways, from closing the doors to these several systems, like silent ventilation and the fan. Our office has a rising temperature, and without using either of these, it would alert some animatronics. The silent ventilation slows this down without making noise, and the fan cools down the office while making noise. The heater raises the temperature in the room, and a mechanism to deal with certain animatronics. The power AC, which does the opposite of the heater. The global music box, which is heavily used to, you guessed it, deal with specific animatronics. Then there's the power generator, which makes our power usage last longer while making significant noise. Finally, the Faz coins and shop. Faz coins can be earned in two ways. The first way we can collect them while having the monitor up, and the second way is when you close the door on an animatronic. You'll hear a sound effect, meaning they were blocked, which generates us a Faz coin. The shop is located on camera 07, where a variety of items can be bought depending on what animatronics are enabled. And I think that should be it, but I'm probably forgetting something due to the number of mechanics in this game. It seems like a lot because it is, and it will only get worse when we eventually add more and more animatronics to deal with. So, I'd make my way through the 700-point scores, learning character by character, from closing the left door every time I open the monitor to prevent Freddy from attacking, to going into the duct and dropping an audio lure to stop the Melody animatronics from entering, as well as paying attention to Scrap Baby, as if she moves it means she'll attack on the next monitor flip, and we counter this by using the controlled shock. I could go on and on listing on how we deal with each animatronic, but we would be here forever if I did, so I'll just be highlighting a few here and there. Eventually I would reach a score of 7,700, which upon completion will unlock me my next trophy. As you can see, a vast majority of these animatronics are set to their highest difficulty. The game would start to become a sensory overload. Dude, this is the most obnoxious game I've ever played. Bro, what is going on? What is going on? I'm at 7,700. I've reached the point where it's like becoming difficult. And after several attempts, I'd unlock the Pond Trophy. I've done it, 7,700. Okay, there we go, Pond. So how did I exactly know how to deal with all these animatronics? Guides, resources, and just to consistently keep playing to learn how to deal with them. Some animatronics are easier to deal with than others. I'll give you a few examples. You have El Chip, who pops up on screen and is removed with a button press. Close the corresponding door when you hear Ballora. Use the flashlight to make Phantom Freddy disappear, and put the mask on when Toy Bonnie enters the room. However, the most important things I learned were cam and office stalling. Camera stalling means that we leave our monitor on a certain camera, which causes the animatronics to freeze until we move it. An example being Circus Baby, Nightmare Mangle, and Bonnie. Usually you'd have to play into their mechanics, which require to buy their plushies with the Faz coins to remove them from the night. But by simply leaving our camera on them, they are functionally useless. Office stalling means we want to stay in the office for as long as possible until we must go into the cameras to reset the ventilation. Some animatronics cannot affect us until we bring up the monitor. An example being Springtrap, who we can see enter the top vent, but he will not attack us until we bring up our cameras, meaning we'll have to close the vent when we do. Which leads me to my last point. As we need to reset the ventilation throughout the night, we'll be wanting to close the left, top, and bottom doors upon opening the monitor to reset the ventilation. Otherwise, there is a very high chance we die to an animatronic. Following up on this, every time we do a ventilation reset, the heater needs to be used for a second to remove any potential danger from the top vent. I then complete a night with a score of 8,400, unlocking me what is considered the best office. The FNAF 4 inspired one. It is bright, allowing you to see things clearly compared to its counterparts. Now it was time for 9100, which now included the music-based animatronics, which means we need to pay attention to the timer in the top right. This is where the global music box cycle comes in. Some animatronics have certain time intervals tied to it. In this case, it is Chica and the marionettes. Every 14 seconds and 44 seconds a minute throughout the night, we'll be wanting to switch to the global music box to soothe the animatronics for 17 seconds, meaning we switch to the fan and power generator on the 1 and 31 second mark of a minute. We need to use the fan and power generator here because the office needs to stay cool, otherwise if it gets too hot, we can potentially die to another animatronic. And the power generator acts as a counter to the fan's usage, allowing us to maintain power throughout the night. I believe these are keybinds on the PC version of the game, but on console, we'll need to hold left trigger and switch between the two with the up or down arrows, meaning one slight mispress could be a deadly outcome as we do not want to miss these time intervals. It would take me a while to overcome, but eventually I would unlock the Mine Trophy. Unfortunately, I don't think this is possible for me. 3 minutes and 4 seconds and I've run out of power. I have no idea. How am I ever going to do 50-20 if I can't even do 9,100? I think the last flip is like 340. Yes! Finally! Oh my god. Yes, it popped, thankfully. Mine viewed all episodes of Toy Chica the high school years. And I've got a silver Freddy Fazbear. Now it's time to go into 50-20 or 49-20. Don't know how long this is going to take. This meant that there were only 4 trophies left, all tied to playing with 50 animatronics. One at difficulty 5, 10, 15, and 20. I thought to myself I could just go into 50-20 and hopefully unlock other trophies with it upon completion. But I was a fool. It felt like a whole new game to learn due to these upcoming animatronics. Foxy, Toy Freddy, and Funtime Foxy. These 3 animatronics will test your patience. Let's talk about Funtime Foxy. The reason why playing with 50 animatronics becomes an absolute nightmare. They have their own camera where they reside, with a sign which displays the time. This means you want to be watching this camera upon the hour, but we cannot do that as we are camera stalling other animatronics. This is where coin farming comes in. Remember, I mentioned you can collect Faz coins on the camera to buy the death coin, which allows us to eliminate an animatronic in the night, which is how we will deal with Funtime Foxy. However, with the 50 animatronics enabled and high difficulty scaling, we can't really use the camera to gain Faz coins. We'll use an alternative strategy with Balloon Boy and JJ. Every time we bring up the camera, they have a chance to spawn in the bottom vent, and by closing the door on them, they'll make that sound, granting us a Faz coin. In addition, we have Helpy, who can also spawn on top of this cabinet in the office, who will also give us a Faz coin upon clicking him. Though, it is not that easy, because we have other animatronics in our office that also spawn upon bringing up the monitor, such as Nightmare Balloon Boy and Golden Freddy, who are incredibly frustrating to deal with if we want to become quick at coin farming. If Balloon Boy stands up, we want to use the flashlight. If he's not, then we do not want to use it. But then, Golden Freddy also has a chance to spawn, meaning we'll need to use the mask every time we exit the cameras. Then there's the Night Marion, who can randomly take up a large portion of the screen, and if we leave our cursor for even a second, we will lose. So we need to keep our cursor in a safe location, which is to the very far side of the screen. It is hard to learn at first because you'll die a lot, but eventually it becomes muscle memory. At one point I was coin farming like this, to this.
Cheers Express, Blue Express, Beach Express, Wow Express, Cannonball Express, Chill Express, Sun Express. Turkey from $59.99. Book now. Sun Express Airlines.
I'm so close. I cannot let this opportunity go. This could be where everything changes.
Huge amounts of hustle.
You would make an ideal partner for either of these 2 women.
Conclusion is, you're going to be my business partner. The Apprentice. Watch on BBC iPlayer.
Now let's talk about Foxy, who co-works with Bonnie. Like with Funtime Foxy, they both reside in a specific camera location, but we can tell who is there at the time by this miniature figure on the desk. desk. The easiest way to put it is that we want the body figure, as if Foxy is there, he will eventually progress his way into our office and end us. So how do we change the figure on the desk? It is done with a camera flip, but it's not an always guaranteed swap, and let's just say Foxy could be stubborn sometimes. Finally, there's Toy Freddy, who is probably the most annoying animatronic. He plays his own game of Five Nights with Mr. Hugs on this camera, and you're supposed to block the door for him depending on where Mr. Hugs is. You will find in many 50-20 runs that players will go to block Mr. Hugs in the opening couple of seconds. However, I use this guide strategy where we completely ignore him, as trying to use an analog stick as a cursor is already annoying, but when you need to press this tiny button while the camera is panning to the side, makes it even more frustrating. Ignoring him now means he'll enter his kill state earlier than expected, which can randomly happen while we have the cameras open.
It's not my fault.
That means we're going to rely on a bit of luck to succeed, as we must access the ventilation several times throughout the night, which is why we want to place our cursor where the reset button would be upon the monitor flip, as we do not want to be in there too long. Even then, seeing the Toy Freddy jump scare will be a regular occurrence. Like I said, I started with 50-20, and I was abysmal at coin farming. I took a step back and wanted to see progress with the trophies, starting with 55, which was quite simple. There we go. 55 unlocked. Completed a night with all characters at 5 or higher. I mean, obviously my highest score is 9,100. I then moved on to 50-10, which took me several hours to beat. Oh my god. I was nearly there. I've literally just got to do one more camera flip. That's all I got to do. And I'm pretty sure Chica will kill me. Oh my god, this should be it. This should be 50-10 for me. I don't got to pull up the camera. You can see Foxy just chilling there. But I think we're good. Just gotta respond to like Ballora and the mask. God, this probably took me like 5 hours of attempts. Yes! There we go, 50-10. Complete a night with all characters at 10 or higher. Then 50-15. 20 seconds away. Are you joking me, man? I literally, that was the last camera flip of the night, and that would have been 50-15. Right, we're good, we're good, we're getting the trophy. 50-15. Yes! There we go, 50-15. Now there's only one more trophy left, and that's 50-20. Wow, I think I took less time on 50-15 than 50-10. So, I'm improving at the game at least. There was only one more trophy to unlock. Impossible. Beat the unbeatable 50-20. However, there are more than 50 animatronics. Do you remember Dee Dee? They become this character known as XOR, who spawns every secret animatronic in this mode. We can deal with most of them quite easily, from waiting for the lights to turn back on, bopping Bonnet's nose, using the AC to repel Nightmare Chica, and moving left to right to get rid of Lolbit. The two annoying ones are Plushtrap and the Minarinas. Plushtrap is dealt with by watching him. Thankfully, he spawns on the same camera as Funtime Foxy, meaning we can get rid of him while we use the Death Coin. The Minarinas take up a large portion of your screen, affecting your ability to see Nightmare Balloon Boy and the figure, but at least they eventually fade away. Yet this is all dependent on XOR, as they have a time interval to spawn, and the ones we are specifically looking for are 11 or 21 seconds. Anything above that, the night is pointless to go ahead with. There'll be a lot of wasted runs gathering 10 Faz coins just to not have this character spawn, which is incredibly frustrating because this max mode has a demanding opening, as we bring up the monitor to enter the duct and drop of the audio lore. Switch to camera 7 so we can easily buy the death coin, then swap back to the vent system so we can avoid 2 animatronics who reside in the cameras. This is because we need to go back in after farming 10 Faz coins in 20 seconds to buy the death coin. In which after we have the 10 coins, we need to click this wet floor sign so it moves to the opposite side, just in case Rockstar Chica is spawned on that side of the office. Then remembering to switch to the global music box at 14 seconds, get an XOR spawn and go into the cameras at a certain time interval depending on what spawn you get, so you can avoid even more animatronics. Once in the cameras, we hope to not die to Toy Freddy, buy the death coin to get rid of Funtime Foxy as well as Plushtrap, then finally switch to camera 2 to stall for the rest of the night, and reset the ventilation where we now enter the office phase. You'll see the difference in the first minute of 50-20 to the remaining rest of the night, as I have decided to include the entire win. But first, let me show you the struggles of trying to succeed, such as slowly farming 10 Faz coins, but I would begin to see progress. Well, that's my personal best. 1 minute and 4 seconds. I actually death coined Funtime Foxy. I mean, that was expected. I had the min arenas, and I didn't pay attention to Foxy, but we got a new PB, just under halfway. We are making significant progress. I would then make mistakes from forgetting to enable the global music box and failing to use the analog stick as a cursor. No, I forgot about the music box! I would have terrible luck from Toy Freddy, Foxy, and XOR. No, so every time I do the coin perfectly, he never spawns. Expected. One camera flip away.
It's not
Okay.
my fault.
It's just, it is what it is, man. It is what it is. I would get better, making it further through the night than ever before. No, man, every time, it's always the last camera flip. It's always the last camera flip. I was on the brink of victory at one point, but I made a simple error in the last moment. You're joking. How was I off sync? Oh my god, dude. When will this be over? Eventually, it would all piece together for the run. I've done it! Oh my god, please pop the trophy. Please pop the trophy. Oh my god, the number's going up. Oh my god. I'm just hoping the trophy pops. Please do not be bugged. Amazing, new high score. I never have to play this game again. Nearly 70 hours. Perfect. It's done. All custom night on PlayStation is done. Unbeatable, 10,600. New high score. Please, trophy, please. Please. I'm not hearing a trophy. I'm scared. I swear it pops much sooner. Golden Freddy twitching. Tell me the trophy pops after this. I feel like it should have popped earlier, before the cutscene. Oh no. You're kidding me. You're kidding me. You're absolutely joking. Oh my god, dude. You've gotta be joking. I gotta do it again. Oh my god. That's right. The trophy did not unlock upon completion. I was distraught. The only trophy in the game to be bugged for me happened to be the most difficult one. So I took a break, and then I beat it again a couple hours later. Come on, I've done it again. Give me the trophy. I don't know when it's supposed to unlock. Are you kidding me? You're joking. And again. Come on, that's the third time I beat it. The third time. It's not popping, is it? It's not popping. I then decided to call it a night, and the next morning I launched the game for one final time. I've done it again. Done it again. There it is. Impossible. Fourth try. It is done. Ultimate Custom Night is done. Let's go. Oh my god. I've done 50-20 more than the other game modes. That's just insane. It's done. I think it is fair to say that on PlayStation, Ultimate Custom Night is indeed the hardest game to unlock every trophy for in the Five Nights at Freddy's series. If you're interested in seeing me rank every game's trophy list, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and have a good one. I got every PlayStation trophy in 8 separate Five Nights at Freddy's games. A total of 104 trophies spans across the games I completed, and I got them all. And I'm going to showcase you the journey of this madness, where at points I was left broken numerous times.
7.
What? How do they expect you to do this with a controller? But also the highs of beating the seemingly impossible trophies. Oh, I've done it. Oh my god. It all started with the first Five Nights at Freddy's. 10 trophies available, no platinum. A guide rating this game an 8 out of 10 difficulty, 1 playthrough and roughly 5 hours. However, I'm going to tell you this was by far the easiest and quickest game to beat in the series. If you don't know what Five Nights at Freddy's is, let me tell you. We've got a new summer job as a security guard at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where we'll be surveying animatronic robots on an overnight shift. Seems simple, but the animatronics do get a bit quirky at night. To put it bluntly, they will kill us. To prevent that from happening, we can close the doors on either side, as well as shine the lights to see. Our power usage goes up by using more resources, and opening the tablet allows us to look at the cameras and see our friends, Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica. Our main goal is to make it at the end of the night, which is 6 AM, and of course, not run out of power. So how long is a night? A full night duration is 8 minutes and 55 seconds. As night 1 is the easiest, it would be our first trophy achieved. Night 2 begins, and the animatronics move a bit more, and we learn about Foxy, who is on a different camera to everyone. Foxy is different, as to prevent him from attacking us, we must keep our cameras on him. If we don't, he'll progress further until he eventually runs down the hallway and attack. But we can also prevent his attack if we quickly close the door. He will instead drain a bit of power. But if we must keep our camera on him, how do we deal with the other animatronics? Well, we only rely on audio cues for Bonnie and Chica, which results in progressing through these upcoming nights very quickly. Night 3 is where I realised I could get another trophy for experiencing a jump scare, so I did. There we go, no hiding. Experience a jump scare and then who knows. I then progress through Night 3 like normal, as the difficulty spike isn't there just yet. Night 4 is unique, as it has another trophy tied to it. Here we need to keep Foxy from escaping during the night. As I've already explained how Foxy works, is another 2 quick trophies. Nice! No running. Get Foxy from escaping during Night 4, and then 4 nights at Freddy's. Survive the 4th night. First attempt. Let's go. Like the previous night, Night 5 also has 2 trophies. This time, we need to keep Freddy from getting to cams 4A or 4B. Now, from what I have read, Freddy works the same way as Foxy. He is directly affected by us watching him. So with occasional checks on Foxy and listening to audio cues, it's another 2 trophies. I wasn't joking that I quickly went through this. I ended up getting the 8 trophies in under an hour. Now, you're probably thinking, didn't you mention this game was rated an 8 out of 10 difficulty? Yes, and the difficulty is going to pick up a lot, because it is not 5 nights at Freddy's, it is 7. A 6th and 7th night to conclude this 100%. Specifically, the 7th night as I managed to beat the 6th night in 2 attempts with one of the luckiest endings. I'm probably dead here. Attempt 3 we go. Oh! Ignore me, survived the 6th night, overtime. Attempt number 2. Nice. If you don't know what happened, let me explain. There's a feature where if you run out of power, Freddy takes a random amount of time to murder you. And because I was so close to 6 AM, the game rolled over and I managed to get the trophy. With Night 6 now beaten, I unlocked Custom Night, which I refer to as Night 7. The last trophy is for beating this Custom Night on the hardest setting, which is unironically called 420 mode. 4 animatronics at the extreme level of 20. It is hard if you don't know what you're doing, in which I was clueless and died a couple of times. After dying for like the 10th time, I investigated the 4B strategy, where you put the camera on 4B, check the closest light, flip the camera on briefly, then check the opposite light, while occasionally checking on Foxy after depleting a certain amount of battery. I did end up dying a few times with this strategy, but improving by making it further into the night, and eventually I got a successful run. Whoa, no tampering! Complete the custom night on the hardest difficulty. That wasn't that bad, to be honest. As you can see here, my hours played was 2. So now let's jump into the hardest game of the series, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. 10 trophies available, rated at 10 out of 10 difficulty, 1 playthrough in roughly 20 hours. I can thoroughly agree that this game is extremely hard compared to the first game. Like before, we're a security guard for a new Freddy Fazbear location. However, unlike the original, we have no security doors to lock out these animatronics. Instead, we've been given a Freddy Fazbear head to disguise ourselves. The first night is figuring out the controls of the game. We have our trusty camera system and 4 areas that we can be attacked by. In front of us, we have the hallway where animatronics can appear for a brief moment. Here we can flash the light to see what is in the distance. Also, we have 2 vents on either side that some animatronics can enter through. And finally, this wind-up music box. Fail to wind it up and we'll be attacked. somehow make it through night 1, which is only 7 minutes, and I did not really understand what I was doing, but we get our first trophy, and then also make it through night 2 with the same amount of knowledge. However, I started to struggle on night 3, dying numerous times. There we go, you failed, experience a jump scare and then something more. And I decided to investigate the proper way to beat this game, and it is going to be very important to explain this now, as it's only going to get harder later. There's a total of 10 animatronics, I guess technically 11 because of the music box, and you'll discover why this game is so difficult. So how do we exactly use our camera system to deal with the animatronics? The catch is, you don't. You only ever use the camera system on the wind-up music box, as the camera is useless against the other animatronics. Here is why. Those 2 vents are an attack point, but there's a noise cue every time someone enters and leaves the vent. If we see an animatronic in the vent, we respond by putting the Freddy mask on. Holding this mask on for roughly 5 seconds will cause them to leave. All animatronics, Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, Mangle, Balloon Boy can access the vents. Toy Bonnie is frustrating, as when you see him in the right vent, he'll either attack after a moment or a while. He also activates this long animation where you have your mask down, which will affect your ability to wind up the music box. Toy Chica is easier to understand, as she appears in the left vent. She does not do the long attack animation where you have your mask down, instead she leaves the office. Balloon Boy was frustrating to learn. He also appears in the left vent, and if you accidentally bring your camera up, it's game over. He enters your office and disables your flashlight. Why is this important? Because Foxy is an animatronic in this game that is directly affected by the flashlight, meaning if we don't use the flashlight on him in the hallway after a few seconds, he'll jump us. Like the other animatronics, we put the mask on for Balloon Boy and he'll leave. Mangle is noisy. It produces these static sounds if it's in the room your camera is on, but also makes noises in the right vent. Once again, putting the mask on will result in Mangle eventually leaving. The other animatronics include Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, who I already mentioned, and Golden Freddy, who only appears on night 6 onward. The animatronics occupy the hallway. I mentioned Foxy requires the flashlight to deter him and to see who is in the hallway, as every time we lift our camera then put it back down, there is a chance an animatronic is in the office, and we must immediately put the mask on. They can also force your camera system down, so you better have lightning reaction time. Eventually, after learning what does what, I would beat night 3 and progress on to night 4, which has an additional trophy where we must keep the music box wound above 50% for all of it. Now, despite learning what the animatronics do, I still wasn't good at the game. This night would end up taking at least roughly an hour to beat, but like anything, the more you practice something, the better you'll get at it. Now, night 5 probably took about half an hour, with night 6 taking roughly over an hour. As the real challenge lies within Custom Night, also known as Golden Freddy Mode or 1020 Mode. It is the main reason why this 100% is incredibly difficult, and it is indeed unbelievable. Not only does it require immense focus, but also a sprinkle of luck. Yes, I say a sprinkle because if we recall back to Toy Bonnie, he either attacks after a couple of seconds, or he takes however long he wants, and it leads to frustrating and weird moments like this. Are you joking? Like, what is that? This game mode is just luck. There's nothing else to it. It's just luck. During that time of dying multiple times, we would unlock the second to last trophy, which was to play all the mini-games. The reason why we got this trophy so late is because these mini-games only had a chance to spawn after dying. I probably should have had a counter to see how many attempts it took, however, I think it is easier to tell you the number of hours it took. It took 19 hours, probably spending 13 of those on Golden Freddy Mode alone. So how did I beat it? Thankfully, as these games have been out for so long, there's a strategy for everything, and it's called the right vent strategy, where you focus on the right vent for Toy Bonnie, only ever looking to the left vent if you do not get an animatronic blackout, which is where you put the mask on when the animatronic is in the room. And here was the winning moment. Yes! Sorry. Oh my god. It's done. I'm done with this game. I'm done. Oh my god. 22 hours into both games, we move on to Five Nights at Freddy's 3. 10 trophies available, rated a 6 out of 10 difficulty, 1 playthrough in roughly 7 hours. It's one of the unique games in the series where there's only one animatronic to deal with. Surprisingly, it never appears on night 1, so this allows us to get used to the systems available, like the good old cameras cameras and vents, which this time can be closed and opened. In addition, two more systems being our ventilation and audio. The audio device allows us to play at noise in the room we have our camera on, and our ventilation which needs to be running, otherwise we'll start seeing hallucinations and allow the future animatronic to move more frequently. Every system here has a chance of breaking down, though to fix this we use the maintenance panel to our left. Even though we're guaranteed to get a trophy for beating night 1, we also must do some secrets on each night to achieve a different ending, which will grant us a trophy. Our first night we had to activate this minigame and do several things before progressing on to the next night. Night 2, we do another secret in which I have no idea how anyone would naturally figure out. After completing it, we're back into the night. This time the animatronic is now active and is known as Springtrap. It appears on the cameras, and let me show you some screenshots. Can you see it in this one? What about this one? It's quite hard to see Springtrap, but as I said, practice makes perfect. It likes to roam around the establishment. If it moves, the camera will produce static, and we can play audio device back to the room it just left. And Springtrap should return to that room. The rooms must be next to each other, as you see on the map. If I see Springtrap on cam 2, I can't just play audio on cam 10, it will have to be either 3, 4, or 5. Also, it can enter the vent in which a noise cube will play, so we would want to close the corresponding vent so it doesn't get a shortcut to us. This was the first time I died in a Five Nights at Freddy's game before night 2 finishing, so we got another trophy. Die! Ah, you got me! That should be a trophy though. Voila, trapped, failed to make it through the night. I then managed to successfully beat night 2 after the previous attempt. Now, there are other nuisances in this game because one animatronic seems too easy. This is where the phantoms come in. These are ghost variants of other animatronics who interfere with your systems by breaking them. There's Freddy, who walks in front of our window. To avoid him, we have to use either the maintenance panel or the camera system. Next is Foxy, who randomly appears to our left. To stop this, we've got to slowly turn. If we see him, we turn back to our camera panel to use it. There's also Chica, Mangle, and Balloon Boy, who can randomly appear on certain cameras. We've got to close the panel or quickly adjust to another camera. And then finally, there's the Marionette, who is visually terrifying but incredibly annoying as they make your screen unusable for a few seconds. Night 3, 4, and 5 are practically the same. Do the mini-games and beat the night. We get the 3 trophies from beating the night, and the 7th trophy for getting the good ending, which was required from beating all the mini-games. Night 6 is known as Nightmare Mode. Basically, our systems are going to break a lot more than usual. We also only have 2 audio usages before having to reboot the system, meaning preemptive reboots can come in handy. Now, the strategy for this can also be applied to Night 7, which is known as Aggressive Nightmare Mode. It's all about keeping Springtrap within a loop of the cameras between 5 and 10. If he manages to progress beyond camera 5, we can still recover, as there is an ambient sound that varies depending on if it's between cameras 1 and 4. Like before, if it leaves the room, play the audio cue to bring it back. Do a preemptive boot just in case. One thing that I forgot to mention is that our camera systems can fail when using them for too long. Luckily, we can still play audio cues before we do a reboot. Now, I'd say both nights took roughly over 2 hours, which isn't too bad. Not a lot of highlights because the game had me feeling like this. Was that all 3 jump scares at the same time? Another one. Probably because I have played 3 of these games back to back, and we still have another 5 games to cover in this video. What about the last trophy? Well, it turns out you don't get this trophy by going for the true ending, as it's supposed to pop up to beating night 5. Meaning I had to do a replay of nights 1 to 5, in which I messed up anyway, because I didn't properly erase my save file. Meaning I had to do yet another playthrough, concluding this 100% at just over 5 hours according to my PS5. Five Nights at Freddy's 4. I want to say this was the game that broke me mentally. I mean, just look at this opening text to the game. First time I'm watching Five Nights at Freddy's 4, and this is what it says. So, this is the perfect way to lose your hearing. Fantastic. 10 trophies available, rated a 7 out of 10 difficulty, 1 playthrough in roughly 7 hours. I'm just going to say first that this game is a buggy mess on PlayStation, but we'll talk more about that later. FNAF 4 departs from the typical camera system. Instead, we play as a child in their bedroom, who for some reason has a door on either side of the room. And we have the well-known animatronics like Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, and Foxy hunting us, but now they're visually terrifying. This game plays on audio alone. For example, when we run up to the door, we wait a few seconds to see if we can hear breathing. If we don't, we use use our flashlight and return to the bedroom to check the other door. If you do hear breathing, you close the door for a few seconds or until you hear footsteps leaving. Now, if you flash the light before the breathing has fully occurred, get ready for your ears to be ruined. I wouldn't say my hearing was particularly good to begin with, and it's probably worse after playing this game. Bonnie occupies the left door while Chica is on the right. Freddy spawns Freddles behind us, and the only way to get rid of them is to turn around when at the bed and hold the flashlight. Finally, Foxy will try to enter the closet. This usually occurs when you're at one of the doors. Once he's in the closet, you must check on him for the rest of the night by holding the door shut. This game is probably the simplest of them all, but I struggled a lot. Of course, I would eventually beat night 1, and after each night we're presented with a mini-game. Our objective is to get Plushtrap to land on the X. Using our flashlight will cause Plushtrap to stop, so we must listen for footsteps, in which I somehow managed to successfully do, and we're rewarded by starting at 2 AM instead. Context, a night's worth is 6 minutes long. A 2-minute skip is quite nice, but because I'm bad at the game, I die anyway and don't get access to that minigame again until the next night. Let me tell you, I won this minigame every time it occurred, but also died every time. So let's just pop all those trophies. Night 5 is unique, because instead of dealing with the 4 animatronics, we deal with only one, which is Fredbear. And this probably makes Night 5 the easiest, because you only deal with the one animatronic. Hear his footsteps at the door, flashlight to see if he's in full view, close the door. Rinse and repeat on both sides. If you hear laughing, that means he's probably in the bedroom, which is either the bed or the closet. We beat Night 5 for the trophy, and now unlock Night 6, which matches the nights together. You deal with the original animatronics for the first 4 hours, and then deal with Fredbear for the last 2. I won't talk much about this night, because there's 8 nights in this game, where Night 7 is called Nightmare Mode, and Night 8 is 420 mode. Now this is where the bug comes in, and it is extraordinary. What? Why not game? What? What's just happened? What? My game's just... I've lost all vision. I'm just gonna play it out. I'm just gonna see what happens. If I die, I die. The sound effect went off, but I didn't die. So it should be approaching 6 AM in a couple of seconds. There we go. Wow, that actually worked. Survive Nightmare Mode. I have no idea what I did. I looked at Foxy, I pressed my buttons, and then the game sort of froze, and I didn't get killed at all. Yep, an invincible glitch. I don't know what happened for it to occur, but I also discovered that I could replicate this glitch multiple times. I've just done it again by accident. I thought I heard the footsteps go away, so I thought I'd shine the flashlight, but I died, and it's happened again. I didn't want to use this glitch for Golden Freddy mode, but even after 100 attempts of trying this, I wasn't good enough. I kept dying over and over. I got a few attempts to the last 2 hours of the game against Nightmare, which is a less forgiving Fredbear, and I just couldn't do it. On top of that, I was having official attempts get randomly affected by this glitch, so after hours upon hours of trying to legitimately complete this mode, I gave in to the glitch. It feels bad to use it as I've done the rest of these trophies legitimately, but I also want to bring more content to the channel. It reminds me of Nick AR with Hollow Knight, where he used the glitch to get the last trophy. However, he did end up going back to beat it, and I'm thinking I could do the same here in the future. I also still had 2 trophies to get, which would be beating all the mini-games, Plushtrap being one of them, and the other, Balloon Boy, which can be found in the extra menus. It's essentially a harder version of Plushtrap, but we easily get the trophy. And our final trophy was to die to every animatronic, in which I had to only die to Foxy to get. And that concludes Five Nights at Freddy's 4 with a total playtime of 11 hours, but it probably would have been a lot more if I didn't use the glitch. After being so annoyed with FNAF 4, I decided to go into Five Nights at Freddy's VR Help Wanted, which can be played without a VR headset. While I agree that the game would be incredible in VR, there was no way I was spending an absurd amount of money on a VR headset. 15 trophies available, rated a 6 out of 10 difficulty, 1 playthrough in roughly 20 hours. It has a variety of games like the first 3, repairing animatronics, listening games, and more. Our main goal is to beat every level available on this television. Hitting this switch to our left grants us the first trophy. This switch basically toggles the harder modes of the existing game. First things first was to play through Five Nights at Freddy's 1. Here we would pick up 2 trophies. One for finding a hidden token, in which we'll need to find them all. And our other trophy was for leaving the office, which results in a jump scare from Foxy. After After beating a level, we would be presented with a present, but I got a jump scare prize that rewarded us 2 trophies, one for the jump scare prize and the other for getting jump scared. Next, I would progress on to Five Nights at Freddy's 2 and get more rewards, this time being a piece of candy, and eating it grants another trophy. You can also get these action figures in the presents, and for some weird reason, you can eat them, getting another trophy. I decided to check out the mini games where you repair the animatronics. First up is Bonnie, and if you strum his guitar, we get a trophy. We repair his eye sockets and now must work on Chica. Another trophy being available here where we must pull 25 roaches off. After getting more rewards from various levels, I would eventually have 3 action figures of Bonnie, Freddy and Chica. And by going to the prize counter, I could have each action figure out and get a trophy for replicating the original main stage show. Now, we wouldn't get the next trophies for a while, as we needed to beat the rest of the game, including the hard mode stuff. We went for a variety of game modes like FNAF 3 and FNAF 4's gameplay with different characters. There was also an upcoming spoiler for the next game being Sister Location, where we had to close the door once the animatronic noticed us, but if you held too long, the plush inside would get you. Walking through a pitch black room with only an occasional camera flash to dodge an animatronic, an incredibly annoying find the plush game, multiple puzzles like rotating pipes and wires overlapping, and finally a maze game, which would grant us the trophy for finishing the game. While it was decent, it would have probably been a lot more enjoyable and difficult in VR. Of course, during these variety of levels, there'd be tokens hiding, and eventually I would find the last one, granting us a trophy. Next, I had to consume all possible edibles in-game, being all of the sweets, and unironically a roach. Our final trophy before our first platinum in the series would require us to get all the prizes, and the quickest way to do this was by completing Bonnie's repair, until we got every reward, and eventually we got the trophy and the platinum. This concludes the VR Help Wanted section at a total of 6 hours. This time we're on Five Nights at Freddy's 5, Sister Location. 10 trophies available. No guide was written for this one, so I'll give you my opinion. 9 out of 10 difficulty, 1 playthrough, and 20 hours, because that's how long it took me. Sister Location is a unique Five Nights at Freddy's experience. Its gameplay is entirely different to its previous entries, and I'd say more narrative-driven, in which I won't be able to do justice in this video. Each night is different to the last in this game. For context, we're a new employee of Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental, where we'll be doing maintenance tasks every night. Night 1 has no real gameplay other than checking in on the animatronics known as Ballora, Funtime Foxy, and Circus Baby, so we get the first trophy in this game quite quickly. Night 2 has us check on Circus Baby again, however our control panel needs to be reset, causing the vents to open and the security to be disabled. Circus Baby begins to speak to us, saying that there is a hidey hole under the desk to hide from some animatronics, so we have to pull this panel to prevent them from entering. But a future trophy requires us to experience every jump scare, so we accept our fate. After successfully hiding away, we need to go to the breaker room, and the only way to get there is through Ballora Gallery. The breaker room requires us to hold these buttons to reset them while trying to deal with Funtime Freddy. When he moves, we can play an audio usage to bring him back to his original point, and eventually get the second trophy for beating Night 2. In Night 3, we must go through the Funtime-atorium while avoiding Funtime Foxy. Here we have to use our camera to flash the room and make our way into Parts and Service, where we're going to deactivate Funtime Freddy and his puppet Bonbon, in which we do and make our way back, but we're jump scared by Funtime Foxy, and that concludes Night 3, surprisingly. Night 4 has us in a Springbok suit, according to Circus Baby, and here we must press all these buttons to prevent them from failing, also while dealing with these other animatronics that crawl into our suit. Now this is difficult, because we have a controller, not a mouse. We can change the cursor speed, and thankfully an option to have our cursor wrap around, but after several attempts I would get the 4th trophy. To conclude Night 5, we're in Parts and Service with Circus Baby, in which we listen to the code that needs to be inputted on this tiny keypad. This sucks. This was infuriating. If you're too slow, you get jump scared. Too fast, you miss the button. What? How do they expect you to do this with a controller? Turns out if you hold one of the triggers, you can make the cursor move slower. While it helped, this whole night is annoying, purely because we're using a controller and not a mouse. After sending Circus Baby to what is known as the scooping room, we're then guided to the scooping room ourselves, only to be scooped by an animatronic known as Ennard, which results in the 5th trophy. Our 6th trophy would be from completing this platformer puzzle minigame by giving all the characters cupcakes, which would result in getting ice cream, where we take it back to the beginning of the doing this, allows us to get the secret ending by completing Night 5 again. However, instead of going into the scooping room, we enter a different room, which throws back into the original Five Nights at Freddy's gameplay. While it is simple, it is unforgiving with the amount of power you get. It quickly depletes, which relies on most of the night to be played by listening. After several attempts, and probably even more attempts on that stupid keypad game, I got the trophy. With the main story now done, Custom Night would be unlocked, and we'd have to get 2 trophies from this. Before that, I decided to experience all the deaths and jump scares from the remaining animatronics in this mode. It's not a surprise that once again Golden Freddy mode is the hardest trophy to get, and especially harder here because it's entirely new. We haven't experienced anything like this in the previous nights, so I decided to throw myself in the deep end by starting with it. 10 animatronics are all new to learn. We have Ballora, who rotates around the room. Loud as she is, close the door she is closest to. Funtime Freddy, who runs between 2 rooms. He has 2 phrases for when he attacks. If he says one, he'll attack on the side he is on. If he says the other phrase, he'll attack on the opposite side. Close the correct door to what phrase he said. Yendo has a high chance of appearing when bringing up your tablet. Take too long, you die. He also likes to take your oxygen, which makes your screen darken and becomes incredibly hard to see. Flip back the tablet after you see him to get rid of them. Funtime Foxy works like normal Foxy, hides in a room, watching them stalls progress, close the door if they're not there. Bonnets, arguably the worst thing in the entire game, because this game is clearly designed for a mouse. You must click Bonnet's nose to get rid of them. They randomly spawn like Yendo when flipping up and down the tablet. Thankfully, this guide I've watched allows you to place your cursor in a place where it will become muscle memory, by turning the dead zone of the joystick up and the sensitivity down, so it's less likely to move from that position. Bidybab occupies the front-facing vent. There are no excuse to understand what position they're in. Once you hear it, close the vent until they leave. Electrobab appears in the opposite room of Freddy. They drain your power. To get rid of them, you have to zap them like the Minarinas who attack your oxygen tanks. These 2 go together as you can easily get them to spawn at the same time. And our last 2 animatronics being Lolbit, who appears on the television. By pressing the joysticks in a pattern, it will disappear. Otherwise, it will affect your ability to use the tablet indoors. And finally, the second set of Minarinas, who just stick to your screen and there's no way to get rid of them. Example footage of Golden Freddy mode, I was using Markiplier's strategy of saying out Funtime Freddy's location to help remember. These Golden Freddy modes require so much focus that there isn't much to be said during them, and I wasn't going to get angry for content's sakes. Like I said, it's difficult to learn because it's all brand new. Bonnet has got to be one of the worst features on console purely because of the controller. This mode all comes down to a rhythm, like most of the games, but it would still take me over 10 hours to beat this mode alone. Thankfully to several video guides, I would gradually improve and eventually get the trophy. Oh, I've done it! Oh my god. Now, the last trophy was weird, because it says we need to complete all the custom night challenges in which I was doing. I then decided to do one of the challenges that is next to Golden Freddy mode on the list, and pop the trophy despite not completing the others. I mean, look, I still have 1, 2, 3, that's 2. Maybe because the cutscenes are tied to that one, if you just do these 2, you get both trophies. Possibility? I have no idea. Until someone else does it, I'll never know. So our final playtime for Sisters location was 19 hours. Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator is up next, and this game has us managing our own pizzeria. 10 trophies available, no guide. So my opinion is 5 out of 10 difficulty, probably like 8 playthroughs, but with PlayStation Cloud saves you can save some time and roughly 10 hours. Our pizzeria is bare bones, and the catalogue has much to offer like animatronics, party sets and games. We buy stuff with money we have available to increase our stats in the top right corner, like atmosphere, health and safety, revenue and entertainment. When we finish the day, we're into the scary part of the game, where we must finish our tasks for a computer, like printing marketing material and other stuff. Next to us are 2 vents where future animatronics finish the task for the night and progress on to the next day. At the end of each night, we find ourselves sitting in a room with an animatronic that can either be salvaged for money or thrown away. We decide to salvage it, and here we must carefully watch the animatronic for movement while playing an audio source. If it moves, we give it a zap and carry out the same task 5 times. Successfully doing this gets us the money, but also the animatronic will appear in the vents in our next night. Our first trophy would come from dying to that animatronic I salvaged from the previous nights. For our second trophy, we need to salvage all the animatronics at the end of each night, so we do. The struggle of getting through the night is when you have multiple animatronics. When you use the computer, it's almost impossible to hear them in the vents. You also have this ventilation system running, and if you turn it off to listen, the temperature will rise until you eventually pass out. You're given one of 3 resources to use: a motion detector to see where the animatronics are, a silent vent that makes the temperature slowly rise, or a sound producer that can be placed in various parts of the vent. My one and only strategy for this game was using the sound producer in one of the furthest corners of the vent and look at the opposite vent, as looking into the vent prevents an animatronic from entering. After successfully completing each night and salvaging the various animatronics, I would reach the final night and the conclusion to the game that results in every animatronic being burned within the building. Our next trophy and playthrough was only to rescue one of the 4 animatronics, and by making it to the end of the week, we would receive the next trophy. A new playthrough again, we literally have to do nothing. Couldn't buy anything for the pizzeria or salvage the animatronics. Just had to do the regular nights, and eventually our trophy would pop. The 5th trophy would require us to get sued into bankruptcy. We could do this by buying items from the catalogue that had risk tied to them. Having higher risk would result in a chance of a lawsuit, and by spending our money, we would have no money to tackle these lawsuits, giving us the bankrupt trophy. Next up is the Lawkeeper trophy, where you must find the secrets of minigames. In the catalogue, you can buy various minigames that will also have to be beaten for a future trophy, by the way. But here, we need 3 machines. Out of the 2 arcade machines and this security puppet. First arcade machine is a simple racer game where we must dodge the traffic while travelling at high speeds. On the final lap, we can take this detour and change into a different minigame. The second arcade has us in a maze where we need to pick up all the fruit by completing this twice, and playing for a 3rd time will result in getting the secret. Finally, the security puppet game where we must play it multiple times without doing anything. The Insanity Trophy had us buy this thing. It's quite expensive, and the best way to increase our revenue is by purchasing products that increase our entertainment and revenue. We can also somehow increase our own money by using the 10 play tokens we get each day by playing the minigames for more money. Using this strategy will also be important for another upcoming trophy. After buying the Egg Baby data archive, we place it down and proceed on to the night. Here, we turn the PC off and turn it back on while holding the right stick to get our insanity ending. We're now going to use the money strategy to buy a bunch of item sets. Our first set includes Trash and the Gang, which is all the cheap animatronics, even if you can call them that. The next set is the mediocre melodies. The great thing about completing these sets is that they give you even more money. After was the Rockstars Assemble of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and a $5 animatronic known as Lefty. The last set we needed are the 3 most expensive animatronics. However, we can get 2 at a very cheap price by buying 2 different minigames, and by spending 10 play tokens on each one. We would get Music Man and Funtime Chica for a significant discount, and the final animatronic being L-Chip for the trophy. Second before last, we needed to beat every minigame, and a lot of them are quite easy, like jumping into a bull pit, picking up some ducks, throwing some basketballs. However, this minigame of Gravity Vortex was insane. It's a bullet hell, and you die in 1 hit. Luckily with PlayStation Plus, I could upload my save to the cloud and reset when I ran out of play tokens, as you're only given 10 a day. After about an hour of attempts, the trophy would be mine. To conclude Pizzeria Simulator, I would have to do 1 more playthrough for the blacklisted ending. This would require us to have a risk rating of 50 at the end of the week. This would be achieved by buying all the products that get marked down. They become cheaper but have a higher risk of liability. By playing the minigames for more money, we could purchase the items, and we hold them instead of place them, as they would increase our risk throughout the nights. We would make it to the final night and purchase the last remaining items. Luckily, after placing them all down, I would have 51 risk. Now, all I had to do was get through the night with 4 animatronics and events due to the amount of risk I had. I just used the same old strategy to beat the game and finally got the trophy. And that concludes Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator at 10 hours. We're finally here, the last game in the video. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, the first proper 3D entry. 29 trophies available, rated a 3 out of 10 difficulty, 1 playthrough in roughly 20 hours, gamers, this game is filled with over 100 collectibles, and we're going to get them while completing the story. We're playing as Gregory, who has found himself locked in Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex. It turns out we can't leave until it's 6 a.m. Our adventure is going to include exploring a variety of games at the Pizzaplex and meeting new animatronics like Chica, Monty, and Roxy. It wouldn't take long for the first trophy to pop, in which we successfully evaded an animatronic in pursuit. After roaming around the establishment for a bit, I would stumble into the daycare looking for a security pass, where this animatronic known as Sun was worried that the lights went out. After successfully turning the lights back on, I would get the second trophy. I also got my first jump scare, resulting in another one. Next up, we would find ourselves in the prize counter office with the alarm systems going off, allowing the two animatronics, Monty and Roxy, to come in. We had to use our classic Five Nights at Freddy's knowledge to close the corresponding doors until the alarms were fixed. After that, we would need to find a party pass to access a certain location of the Pizzaplex, where we would have a choice of Monty's Golf or Fazablast. I decided to go to Fazablast as it seemed more interesting. I'm sorry, golfers. Equipping the necessary equipment for Fazablast, we would win and unlock the blaster. That could stun the animatronics for a short moment. Before continuing, I stumbled across an important event for a future trophy. Wondering about getting the collectibles, I would get another trophy for entering the bakery for the first time. To make more progress in the story, we would have to deal with one of two animatronics, being Chica or Monty. And I ended up dealing with Chica, in which we had to make a pizza to distract her. After distracting, I would have to get Monty's mystery mix and place it within the garbage crusher to lure Chica in. And after taking her voice box, we would then use it to upgrade Freddy and allow us to access new areas. This would allow us to go to Roxy's Raceway, where we need to find a way to decommission her. We find a go-kart that would be useful, but turns out we're not tall enough to ride unless we use a training block. However, it is missing its head, so we need to find one. But it turns out it's also broken. It needs to be repaired in the West Arcade, which is home to Music Man, an area which conveniently loses power, and we must restore it by turning these 3 switches while trying to deal with Chica and Monty. After successfully restoring power and escaping Music Man, I would get 2 trophies, one for escaping the West Arcade and the other for playing this mini game that would apply to getting one of the